Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 283. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by co-host Jim, Sensei of the Whatnot Segulin, and the Duke of You Know. This episode's gone through a couple little changes in both production and editing. What happened was, since Jim and I first recorded what was supposed to be 283, we have recorded some comic segments as well. So what I decided to do was, we've been doing a listener voicemail catch-up, and we got caught up on all of our voicemails. So anybody who's called in, over the next two episodes, we're going to be airing all of those. I'm going to air half of them on this episode and half of them on the next episode, so we're all caught up on everybody's voicemails, and I want to tell you how much I appreciate everybody calling. But what we've also done is we recorded Batman number 3 by Scott Snyder, and we also recorded the new series Blue Beetle, issue number 3, as segments. So what I decided to do was take those two segments and put them on this episode. And then for 284, we're going to continue comic discussion mixed in with voicemails as well. I think that just makes for a better Raging Bullets episode. It's more what you guys are used to. This was originally going to be all voicemails this episode, and I decided to split up the content so you get a little bit of this and a little bit of that. It kind of makes for a nice bit of variety for the show. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Jim, over at our sponsor, DCBService.com, they've got the Deadman trade paperback, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Volume 1 is $19.99 regularly, 40% off, only $11.99. And Volume 2 is $14.99 regularly, 40% off, only $8.99. These are like stories told by Arnold Drake, Neil Adams, Carmine Infantino, just some of the greats in DC Comics history. Anybody who's new to Deadman, it's a great opportunity at a very inexpensive rate, of what, like $20 if you get both trades, of getting some really strong classic Deadman tales if you haven't read any of Deadman's past. And I'm loving the character right now in DC Comics Presents and, of course, in Justice League Dark. So it's a great opportunity to, get that character's history as, this Deadman. How much of Deadman have you read? Any of it?
Not really. He's a character that I'm getting to learn and I'm getting to know now.
So I thought that would be kind of an interesting one. I also want to remind everyone that DCBService.com is a DC Comics digital partner. You earn 5% towards your DCB Service order if you shop from their site. And make sure to connect that to your account through DCB Service. And that's another 5% off, which is great. So make sure any of the purchases that you're doing it through there, you have a chance to earn that discount. So thank you, DCBService.com, for that. Over at InStockTrades.com, I want to shout out this deal again. DC trade paperbacks and hardcovers, 40% off until November 30th. So it's a great opportunity, but forget Black Friday. Black Friday's every day till the 30th over at InStockTrades.com, where you can pick up these amazing deals. So, 40% off or more. There's a lot of different comic companies besides DC that they're offering amazing deals, up to 80% off of clearance sales. So this is a chance. DC archives are 50% off. So that's InStockTrades.com. This is a great time to be shopping there for any. And remember, orders $50 or more, free shipping, InStockTrades.com. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth in the plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So if you haven't read the book, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
And as I mentioned at the beginning, the focus of this episode is all listener voicemails. So we kick off right away with our first listener voicemail. And that's all of, this episode. It's all listener voicemail catch-up. So thank you very much for this. Consider this a bonus show because we were a little late on the last one. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be recording again on Wednesday, and we're going to be going back to Sunday for release dates. So we thought this was a great opportunity to release a show now for you, to give you kind of a little bit of a nice little episode buffer for the holiday and to enjoy some voicemails, and then we'll be back on track with Sunday with our regular episode of Raging Bullets.
There they are, all alone except for that old character.
Hey, Sean and Jim, Don Sanderson. Just a quick note to say hello. And I tell you, I picked up the Arkham City PS3 game the other day, and it is really beautiful to look at. Lots of fun to play. If you've played Arkham Asylum, you've developed all the skills you need for this game, at least so far for me. Just great storyline. Gotham City looks amazing. Very, very fun game. Highly encourage all your listeners who are gamers as well to pick it up. It's breathtaking. Loving the new DCU. I'm currently reading Action Comics, Superman, Batman, Detective, Green Lantern, Flash, Justice League, Birds of Prey, Hawkman, and I think that is it. But it's been a great ride so far, and they have definitely outdone themselves. I didn't think that their storylines and characters could get better, but I'm just really enjoying it. So just a big general rant and rave about how happy I am with my DC world as it is right now. Hope you guys are great. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks for taking my call. See you.
Now, here's my question with you. I know you were talking about at one point in time getting a game system. What is your plan there? Like, I know DCU is free now on both the PS3 and the PC. Are you still thinking of playing that game? And I know I'm jumping to DC Universe Online, but are you still thinking of going that route, or is that something you're kind of put on the back burner for now, or where are you at on that?
I'm right now on the back burner. What it's coming down to is just I'm looking at how much time I have, how much free time I have, and what I'm doing, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm focusing on my comics. I've got a lot of different TV shows that are really good that I'm enjoying watching, and when I do the gaming, I still play some City of Heroes, and I think for now that's just where I'm going to be at instead of incorporating a new system, learning a new system, because there's other stuff I'd rather put more time into than gaming. For me, gaming.
So you haven't, with the fact that DC Universe Online's free, you're not even trying it on your PC?
Yeah, part of it is because I know my personality. I know if I get a taste, I'm going to be all in, and so it's part of the whole addict thing where you don't do it. You can't have just one drink, so don't drink anything. And I can't just have a sample of a game without going all in and going crazy for it. So I think what I need to do right now is just stay away from it.
Yeah, for me, I can't. I'm like, I don't want to say I'm a junkie with it because I've actually consolidated. I'm not doing a game system right now. I do all my gaming through my computer, mainly because kind of what you're talking about, consolidating. So actually, Arkham City, I'm going to be able to start playing tomorrow because it comes out the 22nd on the PC, unless anything changes. I'm really excited to play that because the first game was so good, and I've heard nothing but good things about the sequel. Arkham City is nothing but improved, playing as Batman. Mm-hmm. I've loved the updates to DC Universe Online. I know that they just announced another add-on pack. They're doing the Flash. But currently I created Green Bulleteer. Well, because, it's so hard to come up with names, so I did a Green Bulleteer, which is my Green Lantern guy. Because now, that was the last add-on packet where you could now have energy. And you got the ring on your finger, the green ring. It's fun because as you level up, you have the ability to make more constructs. And the constructs have different button presses where, based on your usage of the button presses, you can combo the constructs, which is a lot of fun.
Cool.
I love the boxing glove one. Is kind of like my current favorite. It has the green energy boxing gloves on. And you can do, if you time yourself right, you can multiple. So it feels like kind of like you're practicing and concentrating. If that makes sense. If you combo your punches, you can get 2 or 3 hits out of your construct. And then I have the drill construct where you can hit somebody from a distance with the drill. So it's fun to do that. And I've been going through the current storyline I'm doing. My mentor now is Superman, and I never played with Superman as my mentor. So I'm doing things like the Gorilla Grodd mission now, where during the Gorilla Grodd mission, you now have the ability to help the Flash. So the Flash has been captured by Grodd, and you free Flash, and you and the Flash team up to take on Grodd. So I love the constant, battling between the hero and the villains and stuff like that. So I'm liking DCU Online. It's funny how, I stepped away from it for a little bit, and then now I'm back into playing it again, and I'm really finding that I'm enjoying, a couple times a week, I'll play it. So it's not something where I feel this need to play it every single day. I can go on I went on the other day and I did the Gorilla Grodd mission. And when I was playing against Gorilla Grodd, I just did that storyline, and then I stopped, and next time I can go play my next comic book mission. And I'm having fun doing that. I could see myself making another character and maybe playing a villain side of it. So I don't feel like this excessive need to play it every day, because there's other games I want to play and other comics, obviously, I want to read as well. But that's all put right on the back burner once I can start playing Batman. The being able to play as Batman again with the different skins that you can put on the character, and just to be able to play through that game with another storyline, knowing that there's Catwoman downloaded content and stuff like that, where that's going to add a whole new dynamic to the game. I don't know, to me, that's something that I can't wait for, is to play Arkham City. Because the first game, to me, was the absolute best. Your secret dream was to have that thing just as a straight-on
movie.
Yeah. I love it because, once again, it's another great Batman game that's getting critical acclaim, and there's rumors now that they're already talking about doing a third game because of just how well received the second game was. Two-Face is in it. I know Joker's in it again. I know Harley Quinn. Yes. My new favorite character, Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn is one in the game again, who I loved having her in the first one. Catwoman obviously is in there as well. I wonder what Catwoman's role is going to be in this one, and how her relation with Batman is going to play in this game. You're not going to take that leap to play that. We'll see. Because you're giving up like the chance to actually be Batman.
I know. And it's fun. A couple of the guys I work with, they're gamers, and they've already played it and solved it, and they got it when it first came out, and they kept talking about how wonderful it is.
Now, I agree with you on, like, when you're saying you're trying to watch yourself, because I'm doing that too. That's why I'm waiting for the PC version, which, like I said, that comes out tomorrow. So I'm trying to, like, kind of watch my gaming as well and not getting as many. That's why I do more open world games. But Batman, there's no way I'm not going to play that game over and over again, because I'm digging. I'm still digging the first game. So I can't imagine this one being actually better than the first one. So it's kind of cool.
Hey, Sean and Jim. This is Caleb from Atlanta, Georgia. Second-time caller. A few weeks ago, you talked about the Green Lantern book, and if it was either difficult or hard or rather difficult or easy for new readers to plug into. And I've been a long-time Green Lantern fan, so for me, when I was reading it, I thought, hey, this is the perfect comic. I can get into it, but my friends could get into it. And so I asked some of my friends who I'd suggested the title to, who had never read Green Lantern before, and they all agreed that it was kind of difficult for them. They just felt like there was a lot of history they didn't know, and they didn't really know what was going on. A lot of them had seen the movie over the summer, so they knew Sinestro, but they didn't know why he was Green Lantern, why Hal wasn't. So they felt a little bit frustrated by it, but I think some of them are going to hang on to it. I know most of my friends also picked up Green Lantern Corps, and they said for some reason that was a lot easier for them to connect with as a new reader. So, yeah, there's that. Personally, I think all the Green Lantern books have been fantastic so far. I'm really looking forward to see where they're going in the future. But, yeah, I hope that sheds some light on the subject. So, anyways, love the podcast. Keep it up. All right, bye.
And I let somebody from work read Green Lantern. And the interesting comment, he echoed what I was kind of worried about. He was a little bit confused. But the one thing I asked him, like, would you want to read issue 2? He goes, oh, definitely. I got to see what happens. So right there, that says something about the strength of the story, that it was a cool story, and it did get him wanting to read the title. There was some confusion, but it was still a good story, and that is positive about the Green Lantern. I think it is gripping, especially after with each new issue coming out. It's pulling you in deeper and deeper, and it's pulling in the new reader deeper and deeper. Whereas longtime readers, we jumped on this saying, this is awesome.
Well, you and I talked about that with a number of the titles that we have discussed, where we've jumped on a title for issue 2 or issue 3 as far as discussing it on the podcast. And how some of those titles, we like the book even more by issue 3 because there's things that we might have been confused about because it's a character that we aren't as familiar with or maybe never read monthly. But now we're more invested in that character, and there's more of an understanding of the direction of where that character's going. I would even say that with some of the top-tier characters. Like, I think Superman's direction is a great example of what each issue of both Action and Superman, I'm finding more and more investment in the world. Superboy, I think we said something very similar with, where, you know, the direction of that character is something that's become a lot more interesting to me. So I don't think it's exclusive to more unusual characters. I think that there's some characters like Hal's book that is something where you need a few issues to get kind of a feel for it. But you're right. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer on that. Depending on the reader, if you get hooked into wanting to read the second issue, that is mission accomplished.
There is a right answer, though. Mine. I am right.
Okay, Larf, please.
Mine.
Nothing like the handy-dandy electro-claw for carving through metal doors.
Jim, before we kick into our first review talking about Batman number 3, I wanted to chat about Arkham City because I've had about 4 hours with it now, and the game is incredible. I was under the impression you only played as Batman. I don't know why. I knew there was Catwoman download content, but I guess I assumed, like, a lot of times the download content relating to Batman, like they had a Joker content with the first game, where you could play as Joker in these little side missions, combat missions where you would practice fighting skills. And when you got to play as the Joker, it was different because the Joker had a different skill set, but you didn't get to play as the Joker in the main game. In the main game, you get to play as Catwoman.
Yeah,
like there's actual story missions in there where you play as Catwoman. I don't know why I didn't realize that, but it's really cool how she interplays into the storyline. And she's got her own storyline that mirrors what's going on with Batman. Plus, the great part about Catwoman is everything from the way she climbs buildings. You know, Batman uses the traditional grapple, but Catwoman uses the whip and her claws. So the way she even climbs buildings and moves around the city is very different than Batman. Combat, I knew that would be different because of the fact that you could use whip and things. But there's this cool bit where you actually go to her apartment, and then you get extra little gadgets and gizmos from her apartment. And there's certain trophies for the Riddler that you can only get as Catwoman because Catwoman has a different skill set than Batman. So it's really a lot of fun to play as the two. Did you know you get to play as Bruce Wayne in the beginning of the game?
I did not know that.
The game starts off with Bruce, and this is right in the beginning of the game, like in the opening animated sequence. You get captured by Hugo Strange, and it's because Batman is trying to shut down this prison state. You know, Bruce Wayne, I should say, is trying to shut down this prison state by taking a political stance, which if Vicky Vale's doing this interview where she's talking about how this is very unlike Bruce Wayne and you don't normally get to see something like this from him, well, this is the time where Hugo Strange, who knows his identity, chooses to strike. Hard to get Batman, easier to get Bruce Wayne, is his thinking. Captures Bruce Wayne, and where does he throw Bruce Wayne?
Arkham City.
Absolutely. You have to try to escape. You've actually been captured. And there's this bit where you're sitting in this chair. You have to use the controller to bob and weave in the chair to do the whole knock the chair over so you can break yourself free. And then a guy comes in and you're still cuffed, and you've got to take him down while cuffed. It's just like incredible. And that's just the opening sequence to get you familiar with the controls. But you get to do it as Bruce Wayne, which I thought was kind of a neat little twist. And then Alfred, sends in the bat suit and stuff like that. And this is just all opening sequence stuff that's all game engine, all while you're playing and getting used to the controls for the game. You also have a sequence with Catwoman in the beginning where you get to use the controls that way as well. You get kind of used to her controls. But there's a lot of similarities in the control scheme, obviously, for Catwoman and Batman because it's the same game engine. But the game is just incredible all the way through. I'm just loving the storyline. So far, I've encountered people like Two-Face, Penguin, Joker. You have to fight. Wait, you fight Penguin as Bruce Wayne. Because you've been thrown into this prison state. So, it's really just awesome. Harlequin's in there, and then there's all kinds of different mutations and things throughout the game. Poison Ivy's in there in the Catwoman sequence, and I'm assuming you encounter Poison Ivy later as Batman as well. So it's an awesome game so far. 4 hours in, I'm just blown away. It was you called me up earlier and said, "Hey, we're going to be recording in a little bit because you got home early today," which I was excited about. I love doing an afternoon recording because we're both refreshed and stuff, and there's an energy there that you can't always get in the evening. But I'm like sitting there, I'm like, wait, but I'm playing Arkham City. I'm throwing around as Batman, so it's great. But I got my version of Arkham City off of Steam, which is the online digital service for downloading games. And one of the reasons why I like shopping through Steam, it was on the last episode, Don Sanderson mentioned during voicemails the cost of video games and things like that. Steam always does these cool summer sales. And I know we're going to see a lot more of these digital sales and things like that from Direct to Drive and Origin, which is EA's new company. But you get like incredible bundles of PC games at like 80% off, which, if you pick up like 5, 6, 7 games like that, that'll last you for like a whole year. So, I mean, I've got like a lot of game content that I got at, dirt cheap over the summer sale from them that, like, if I ever stop playing this game, which I don't know when that's going to happen anytime soon because there's just literally so much to do, I got other games to play.
But, you're covered.
Yeah, I am. But I love the whole Batman. I love that Alfred, because the last game it was more Oracle focused. I don't know that if we're gonna see Oracle in this one or not. This one is much more Alfred focused. Alfred is his confidant, so it's Bruce Wayne and Alfred. I like the distinction between the two because in the first game there was a lot more reason for Batman to be helping Jim Gordon. And from where he was located, there would be reason for Oracle to be his confidant. And this game, right, at least for the starting point right now, and for the first 4 hours of it, I've been working with Alfred. And I love the tongue-in-cheek humor of Alfred coming to life, the stuff we normally see on the comic books being brought to life. The writing is, it's Paul Dini. The writing's incredible in this game.
Now, who does the voice for Alfred? Anybody we know?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't, it's the usual suspects for Batman and for the Joker. I thought I read that the Harley Quinn was somebody who sounds like the girl who normally has done Harley Quinn in the past, I thought for some reason. I might be wrong on that, though. But Alfred, I don't know. It sounds familiar. I don't know if it's one of the ones from previous animated series or just somebody who's doing an Alfred voice, but he's good, whoever it is. So,
he's a good, solid voice.
Yeah, it sounds like Alfred. I mean, like, cool. At least what you think Alfred should sound like. And it really is comic book dialogue being brought to life. It is that kind of, where Alfred's kind of laughing at, like, what Bruce is doing in his own way. The old groaning that Alfred does when Bruce, like, isn't going to obviously follow his sage advice. Knowing he's going to do it anyway. The thing I'm on right now is there's an assault you can go on the old Gotham City Police Department to get Mr. Freeze. Because Mr. Freeze has this cure you're looking for. Now, I'll be vague about that. But you're looking for a cure for a certain reason in the game. And Mr. Freeze was the last known person to have it. And he's holed up in there because of their research labs. That's a spot where he can find the kind of cryogenics that he would need from them obviously working on him. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of cool. So I'm excited now. My next opponent's going to be Mr. Freeze. So I had to pry myself away from going after Mr. Freeze.
Well, I'm glad you did.
I did. It's cool. Dude, you really got to rethink this. Speaking of Batman, let's talk Batman in comics. One of my favorite comics in the relaunches has been Batman. And this book, issue number 3, The 13th Hour. Writer Scott Snyder, pencils Greg Capullo. Inks by Jonathan Glapian. Colors FCD. Letters Richard Starking and Comic Craft's Jimmy Bentencourt. Apologize for that. Assistant editor Katie Kubert. Associate editor Harvey Richards. Editor Mike Martz. Cover by Capullo and FCD. Or FCO. It's either FCE or FCD or FCO.
I was thinking O.
Is it O? Yeah, I think I'm catching myself there. Variant cover by Ivan Race. Joe Prado. Rod Race. And Batman created by Bob Kane. This book, woof. If you can say that you have a favorite with the Batline, because I am so leery to even say that anymore, because I just think this is a terrific time to be a Batman fan. I've really felt this way since Batman Reborn, where when Dick Grayson took over, I just felt like every Bat-related title was kicking on full thrusters. There was an individuality to each one, yet they felt part of a larger shared universe, a Bat universe, where there was things thematically that were going on in them that, made them feel like they were connected, while they had well-crafted stories in each title. So you could literally follow one book, and yet you and I, let's just say you were reading only one Bat book and I was reading all the line. We could have a great Batman conversation because you understand Batman's world from the title you're reading. That's what I really am enjoying about these. I really feel each title has that kind of hook to it. The one thing in particular I really have loved about Scott Snyder's writing is that he's crafting Gotham on a global scale. He's looking into Gotham's past and bringing it into present day. The Gates of Gotham miniseries was not a throwaway miniseries. We've seen that thing appear in All-Star Western now. It's having thematic tones here because now we've got Alan Wayne again and we're back into the past with this whole Court of Owls thing. And I'm just glued to death. The artwork, I think, is stunning. This is a book, or Scott Snyder, I think, is a writer who's done very well in his tenure involved in the Bat books with art teams that he's worked with, because this is another just dynamic, really well put together art team that I think just captures the mystery. I love when an art team is able to capture the past. There's a shift to present day, but yet thematically it all feels part of the same film that I'm watching, and I do this has a film style to it, and I love seeing I so want to know more about Alan Wayne. I would read an Alan Wayne miniseries now just to see more. Where did he go when he fell down that manhole? I mean, this book, if you can't guess, I love Batman.
Yeah, I think we're getting that in that idea, that notion that you're kind of a Batman fan,
just a little bit,
just a little bit,
yeah.
Yeah, I tell you, I got to echo a lot of stuff you're saying though, with just the cinematographic whatever feel for the book, where it's got this, it's got a larger than life persona when it comes to Gotham City. And that's something I really enjoy, and I really like that concept, because we always talk about in Bat books, Gotham City itself has to be its own entity, has to be its own existence. And, definitely in the, and I'll say this in all the titles, all the creative teams are really doing that with making Gotham a different type of city. And that's something that, when we start looking into the past, and you look at Bruce Wayne's past, okay, there's only so far you can go. Well, Bruce is just one small piece of Batman, one small piece of Gotham. You're seeing groundwork laid for what becomes Gotham, what becomes Batman way back in the day within his ancestors. And I think that's a kind of a cool concept. If you start thinking just a little bit off the page, a little bit out there, that in a way Batman really wasn't he was a creation by Bruce, but in a way, he was kind of the way the city is. It sort of created, Batman. It's yes, Bruce, put on the costume, he did the training, but it's kind of like the city itself said, no, this will be our champion.
I like that, and I like that concept. And I agree with you. There are elements of that in Batman that I really like, a predestiny, if you will. And I like that. That's something that I find that's particularly interesting about it. Now, Gotham City, now, when he's looking at that present day, am I the only one that's wondering, how does the Whisper Gang eat? Is it through those little holes? I mean, what are you getting? I mean, these guys got to have, their food chopped up, stuff like that. Because they wear those things are fused, not they can't take those off for a year.
Yeah, how do they eat?
Well, they got a little hole in the front, so everything's got to be chopped up into minuscule little portions, right? And
liquid. Well, I think throw it in the blender, and you're just sucking through a straw.
It is big enough, but they're like somebody if they go to a restaurant, they got to have everything cut up from a little kid.
I got a feeling if you're in the Whisper Gang, you're not really going out. If you're the ground floor, these. The initial guys, you're not going to restaurants. You're not being sociable. The only thing you're doing is working. The only thing you're doing is killing. And it's, this isn't the fun part of the job. I think this is the beginning part. This is the proving your loyalty, and with that comes discomfort.
Well, they're dressed really nice for all the hacking and slashing they're doing with these masks on. Because, I'm like listening, I'm like, okay, do you really need to do the suit and tie ensemble when you're wearing that beastly thing on your face? They're like a well-dressed Jason.
They're not casual guys.
Mm-hmm.
They're professionals. So
this is about Batman trying to find clues. He's going after one of the members of the Ukrainian mob, Luka Volk. What can he find out about this owl? This owl's base, or at least place of operation, seems to be in their territory. He's looking for any clue he can, because this is somebody who's come out of nowhere. And it's playing off of a rhyme that was a long, rich part of Gotham's history, but it's a mythical part of Gotham's history. This is not something that people believe in. This is something that, it's like their boogeyman.
Mm-hmm.
And that part is something that, with Bruce's history, through multiple family generations in there, this is something where they thought Alan Wayne was nuts towards the end. He was paranoid about these birds, and his paranoia about these birds and
the owls
coming. But they specifically referenced them as birds towards the end. And this is really something where, in many ways, this could be the vindication of Alan Wayne. Because this society existed.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. Now, did he go crazy? Did it, was it drug type of things they were doing to him? Was it dementia? Was it what actually caused this stuff with Alan? Because there's, within his rantings, there's the, within the 13 hours upon us, their nests are around, they're in my home, and he's saying he knows what's going on, and we learn what exactly this all means, but there is still a bit of craziness in him. And that's the thing I wonder is, was it dementia, but it's, him trying to relay it? Was he drugged? Was there something else going on, which I think as everything plays out, we'll probably even see some more. There'll probably be some more vindication of Alan.
I love the working rail lines and the fact that in a city as dark as Gotham, this is going to be a location where people who... you can actually make a map of Gotham and of the villains and where they're located. I like that in No Man's Land. No Man's Land, Gotham was divided up into territories, and you knew who was in charge of what territory, and when you switched to that territory, there was something different. I like this idea that from Wayne Tower outward, you can actually say, okay, this gang's here by following the train lines. And there was something kind of cool about that Bruce knows where everybody's located and what their territory lines and the fragile peace, if there is any, between these gangs. I don't know if I would call it peace as much as, maybe they have an ability to trade or something like that between them, but that's going to be about it.
Hey, the 15th rule of acquisition, peace is good for business. So, they need to keep peace sometimes. You need to get along with each other. Sometimes, it's what you kind of have to do. And I like the fact that we have these distinctions and that, they all they're not completely idiots. They recognize, hey, you know what? We need our rails. They need their rails. We'll do it this way. You take that one. As long as you don't encroach on our land, we're okay. You come after us, we'll take you down. And over time, there have been the blood feuds. There have been the wars of, territory and whatnot. And it's cool to see them map stuff out, lay it out there, and let us know.
Well, part of why Bruce needed characters like Matches Malone to dress up as was because of this gang type of situation. He had to infiltrate the gangs, find out things like where they would meet, who the leaders were of the gangs, their little quirks in the way that they operate, and all that stuff to give himself a little edge. Like in the case of taking a tiny magnet with you when you happen to be fighting the Whisper Gang. Where is he getting these magnets? I'm a school teacher. I have magnets in my classroom. None of them seem to stay up if I've got more than a single paper underneath them. Where is he getting these magnets that will hold like 20 guys onto the side of a train?
He magnetizes the whole train that pulls them on.
With that little tiny thing, though. Did you see that thing that came out of his...
That's something impressive.
Yeah. I want to know where to get that.
Now, one of the things I was thinking, because I was thinking off page again, is Bruce already planned for this, and he rigged up a giant electromagnet in each of the trains, and that little magnet that he threw on was just the activator of it. So the train itself is actually configured to do that. But he doesn't want the thing running all the time as a magnet, one, because you don't want to give away what you're doing, but two, it could disrupt the regular people who run it. But in this circumstance, boom, that was the activation.
See, and I take it he's got some kind of tiny super magnet.
Well, yeah, probably, but I was having a hard time getting my hands around accepting a little tiny super magnet, and I preferred my other explanation. That, or the other thing I was thinking is when he pulls that electrical cable that he zaps the one guy with, he's able to then to run a current directly into the train, and like any electromagnetic type of thing, magnetize the train that way.
I wonder if it isn't magnetizing part of the tracks too.
Yeah,
because you see that they do show the feet by the tracks.
Yeah.
I don't know. Actually, I really like your idea of the electricity from the cable combined with his magnet making an electromagnet. That actually seems more probable to me than his little tiny... Actually, than both of our explanations. I really like that idea.
Yeah, and here's the funny thing. If it's supposed to be that little tiny magnet, I am still okay with it because it is Batman and he can do super cool stuff like that. But there's, it's kind of a part of my enjoyment of this book is that I am thinking of different stuff off the page. I am kind of wondering.
But that fits like what we've seen from Snyder's writing, too. And just to have that step-by-step layered, like seeing that. So I think it is a little bit A and B.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. I'm always okay with Batman having like the coolest gadgets that just like... Batman always, to me, has that quality that I've always liked about James Bond. There's gadgets that for some reason I just accept that Batman just has that tech. How does he have that tech? Because he's Batman. Like, he's got billions of dollars. He's got cutting-edge research at his disposal. He's going to have things that, like, we are not going to see on the store shelves ever. So I'm okay with that. I know, it's just something that's really great about it. But I loved also the lie detection.
Yes.
Because this guy doesn't have any information for him. So he's not going to waste his time anymore. He's going to then go back and he's running voice analysis. He's finding any little clue he can possibly find. And this is the reason why I wanted to mention the game first. This sequence where you see that Alfred, the way that he's carrying himself right there, all prim and proper. I'll leave this in arm's reach, sir. And then the talk about getting out into the sunlight and stuff like that. This is the Alfred in the video game. Like, that's what I'm loving right now about playing Arkham City and just let's take it out of Arkham City, just the whole Batman world right now. There's a real consistency in how these characters are being crafted and delivered across all media. I'm excited for a new cartoon coming up because I think really DC's getting a strong handle, DC Entertainment as a company, of trying to take all of their properties, all of their ways of reaching people with these, different characters that they have at their disposal, and really going for a consistency that I'm just finding really exciting and refreshing. Different stories, fresh, delivery method for these things, but immediately familiar. It might be bent a little bit this way, a little bit that way, but there's a consistency in tone that's there and present that I just really am enjoying. And the character of Alfred, it was funny how that was something that stood out for me, probably because he, it wasn't a presence that I remember a lot of in the first game. I was more focused on Oracle. So, the Alfred in the game now and then seeing this in the comic book, I don't know, it was just something that I just really loved. The mystery of the owls, though, is something that I'm really finding engaging. I love this idea that they're making use of the hidden 13th floor, the space in between that's left there for that floor. I just love how there's like this secret society running around in Gotham that Batman, who has gone out of his way to take advantage of the hidden places in Gotham City, is now finding that there's somebody else was doing it long before him and maybe doing it better.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's... when you start looking at, because you mentioned with Alfred and just the relationship, the connection, and you start looking through the past, I was so glad that, with this Owl Society, because there's so, I don't want to say it's so, it's the stories have been done, but, they have. We've had a lot of stuff with Bruce Wayne. We've, go through, and if you introduce something new into the past, you got to make sure that one, you have an explanation why he never encountered it before. You need an explanation why, if this is something going on in Gotham, Bruce's family was there. Alfred, his, his family had connections through the Waynes, so that's multiple generations there. So you got to explain why no one knew it. And I was so glad that they knew about the society, but it was always just dismissed as the childhood story. So it was just a little nursery around the, you mentioned before the boogeyman. Well, now we're seeing that it's not the boogeyman. Now it's getting Batman's attention. Now Bruce is starting to break it down, and I like seeing him kind of accept that, okay, I got to figure this out. This isn't just a throwaway nothing. This is an actual problem that my city has. And it's kind of cool seeing him on the reactionary where he didn't plan for the Owl Society. He doesn't have this huge, big plan already. He's making up as he goes along. He's figuring this out, piecing together the clues. And I like seeing that Batman who, wasn't 100% prepared for this. Yes, he's prepared for stuff like this. He actually probably thought about what if a group came in, how do I deal with it, but nothing specific as an ancient Gotham society that, I missed. He never probably entered that into the equation, so you're seeing him improvise, and I think that's kind of cool.
One of the advantages that Gotham has, and the Wayne family has as a group of characters, and Alfred's family history even, there have been overviews, but there's never been a detailed step-by-step exploration. I'm talking about where you get down to the nitty-gritty fine details. So there's a lot of opportunity for this type of thing to happen, where there's things that we just didn't know that were part of that history. So there's, and especially then you add in the fact that we've got a new DC universe where all bets are off as far as what the past actually is. You've got that twist in. But let's say that we didn't have the new, out of Flashpoint, this whole new universe. Let's say that we just kept with the same continuity that was there before. Gotham really has a big open door of secrets that can be kind of unfolded over time like this. This is a great example of making a good use of that and showing us something. I want to know more about Gotham's history. I want to become a Gotham historian now because this is a scary place.
Now, to me, it seemed like Alfred here was saying that his family has always been associated with the Waynes. Was that always a story element in this, or did Alfred get brought in because of Jonathan and Martha Wayne? And Martha Wayne, sorry.
I know, you're thinking of the Kents.
Yeah.
It was one of those, I always, as a kid, assumed that Alfred was his family was associated with the Waynes. And that was something that I always remembered. But there have been so many redos of the origin over the years that I don't know if that was something that was always... That's a great question.
Yeah.
Like, when did that come into play? That was absolutely driving me nuts, so I had to look it up. But what were you going to say, Jim? You had a point about this that you wanted to...
Well, one, it was two things. One, I was just going to comment, what Alfred said is like, to hear my father tell it, Master Allen boarded up the windows for fear that one night the owls would come for him. So if his father's telling Alfred... Alfred's father's telling him about Master Allen, so that is where I'm getting the whole line of thought that it is that Alfred's family is takes care of the Wayne family, which is kind of interesting as well.
Well, there's two different versions of this, and see, this is where I got confused because I remember it being referenced, back when they were doing a lot of solo-ish stuff with Alfred, especially when Alfred left. There was a time period where Alfred, because of everything that had happened with his relationship with Bruce, Alfred went his own way and left for a while. And when he did, you got more into this British spy adventurer that he did. And in that version, he was hired away from the British royal family. And I remember that being a part of his background. But then at some point in time, it shifted back to something that was pre-crisis, the idea that it was the dying wish of his father. And in the pre-crisis, it was his father, Jarvis, and that this was a family thing where they served the Waynes as the Waynes' butlers. So that seems to be more of the line of thought. And in that case, he was an actor on the English stage, which would bring in a lot of his things that he helped Bruce with as far as Matches Malone and different characterizations and kind of masking himself that Alfred would bring to the table as well. If anything, the presentation of Batman, a lot of that can be attributed to Alfred's teachings as well. So I don't know. It's clear on this one that it's there, that history is there. So was it always the history? For the most part, it looks like it. And I remember that period, though, like I said, especially when Alfred left. He left for this stretch of time where it was many months where Alfred was away. And actually, he came back for the first time in Nightwing's book and was teamed up with him for a little bit, and then eventually came back and was at Bruce's side again. It was during that time that there was a lot more of an interplay on the fact that he was this, British royal family butler, and he'd been an adventurer at certain points in time in his life. So I don't know. I don't know when that switch came in. I like it. I actually like the idea of there being a long family history there. I like the idea, though, that he came into being, and I'm hoping that stays, that he was something before he became the butler to the Waynes, and that this was something that he inherited from his family, a service that he took on out of responsibility to his family, because that explains Alfred's skill set. Alfred having more of a, I know in the pre-crisis history, he was an intelligence agent too, and I think there's certain skills that we've seen Alfred clearly has that Bruce relies heavily on that come from years of things that Alfred was doing before he was a butler in the service of the Wayne family. So I take it that that's what it is, and that his father was a butler before him to the Wayne family, and he took over that service. It's interesting that you would choose, especially with all the things that Alfred had gone through, to do that. But it also shows there's something proper about that. It's a duty thing. And I've always, it's Alfred's allegiance to his duty, and the idea that that is something that he gains from his family explains a lot of what we see from that character and just how much he's done for the Waynes, and Bruce in particular.
Yeah, for good Batman stories need a good Alfred character. They need a good writing, and they need that. You need to believe that this is Batman's confidant. This is not just Bruce Wayne's butler, the guy who helps him manage things and deal with it, but this is a confidant to Batman. There's a lot of nasty stuff that Bruce has to deal with every day. When he's in the cowl, and he needs somebody that not only that he could trust, but he needs somebody that can bear the burden. Part of when you unload on somebody, when you explain and tell people what's going on, you could seriously bring somebody down. How many times have you're sitting there hanging out and someone just starts telling you someone's going through a bad time and they just need to unload and they just need to vent. Well, venting everyday problems, that can be kind of tough. Venting Batman problems, that would be just toxic, and it'd be hard to be a person who regularly is sees that stuff. And Bruce not being the talkative person he is, Alfred's probably going to see a lot more that Bruce isn't getting off his chest, and that is something that would weigh on him. So it's the Alfred as a character is a person of honor and integrity, and I love seeing just glimpses of that and seeing that as in just the day-to-day interactions between the two of them.
The idea of perseverance of that character is something. The darkness that he's been exposed to, the worry, it's something that I've really liked about him. He's another one that, very similar to Bruce, he's had loving relationships in the Batman comics throughout the years, including with Leslie Tompkins. But those relationships were ultimately doomed.
Yeah, it's kind of tough.
Yeah, well, and that's something that I really appreciate about the character, because not only has Bruce given up a lot of that element of his life, he has relationships, but they're ultimately doomed to only go so far. Alfred has that same problem because of his loyalty, and it's like father like son almost, because I do look at him as obviously a father figure to Bruce. His loyalty of staying there like that, it has gone beyond the butler relationship between the two. He is a father figure as well, and Bruce has often acknowledged that, and I like that duality of Alfred. He's got his own masks, dad and butler and sidekick, or whatever you want to call him, partner. I would never call him a sidekick. I would call him a partner in that relationship. It's something I really love. I love these moments when you see the two of them together in the cave brainstorming, and Alfred adds a little something to the table, and brings something in that maybe Bruce didn't see or Bruce doesn't know because Bruce isn't as old. I think there's really something important about having a character who has lived longer than Batman to give that kind of guidance and advice. And I love how he interplays not just in this book, but in Batman and Robin in particular. I think he's just a character that right now is another MVP We've talked about that on the show before. I think some of our favorite eras of talking about in Batman on the show have been the eras where Alfred's been spotlighted. He was great in The Outsiders. When that series originally kicked off and Bruce was off the table and Alfred was kind of running things.
Yeah.
That was fantastic.
I dig that, and I kind of wish he wouldn't have gone away from The Outsiders, but with everything that was going on in the Bat universe, it made sense that Alfred had to step away from it. That's something I wouldn't mind seeing in this current universe, see Alfred come back into some type of role like that. But in a way, we're getting, I say I'd want to see that, but I don't want to pull him away from Bruce. I don't want to pull him out of the Bat books. I want him to remain here, but I'd like to see him do other stuff. It's kind of I want it all.
What horrible thing's going to happen to Lincoln? Because I like him, which means he's doomed. He's hopefully he'll get elected, but something terrible is going to happen, right? I mean, is there any way this guy can survive?
No. Well, you think about it, if he gets elected, if he's against the Owl Society, if Bruce doesn't completely take them down, he's a goner. And he's got a big old bullseye already on his chest, just because, they've already said they don't like him that much. So now if he's siding with Bruce Wayne, if he's throwing his hat with him and going against the corruption, guess what? That's why a lot of Gotham DAs don't last too long, because they don't play ball. So I'm thinking Bruce visiting him in the hospital is going to be a common occurrence, I think, for this guy.
Either that or he's already a bad guy. And he's pulling a wool over our eyes, which I'm not saying I'm sold on that, but that's not unheard of in Gotham either.
True. Yeah, that would be wonderful. Or he could very easily turn. They could already have gotten to him, and he's now scared. This little run-in that he had here has made him go, you know what? Maybe the Owls ain't so bad. Depends on what they want me to do. I can always, you can always justify it. It's that whole, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. You sit there and say, you know what? If I get elected, I can do all this good stuff for the people. Yeah, I got to look the other way for some stuff, but you know what? Overall, I'm helping people. I'm doing the right thing. And you can very easily justify in his head, allowing the Owls around, allowing them to do what they want, and just, what he'll start doing is he'll start drawing the line in the sand. And he'll take a little step, move it back just a little bit. Well, I won't do this. Well, I'll do that, but only if this happens. Only if and next thing you know, by the time he starts making compromises, he's just, the line's like 2 miles down the road, and it's completely, tweaked and changed around from what he originally thought.
What would truly be the most shocking thing? He wins, and it has a nice long run as mayor. It's a sad part about Gotham. Like, this guy surviving for any length of time would be shocking.
Well, it's kind of like the old adage, who would really want to live in Gotham City? If I was a normal person, and I would get the heck out of Gotham. I would go, if you have to go to some city with a superhero, I would go Metropolis, or I'd go maybe Key City, maybe Opal City, just some of those. I'd get the heck out of Gotham. It's this major booming business, Metropolis, and maybe there's some people locked in there. If you're at Wayne Tech, you can't leave, and you got a really good job. But if you're the everyday normal person, man, I'd be looking to move.
Well, here's the funny thing, though. Let's go a different route. What if he does survive? Like, what if he becomes mayor and has a nice long run? There's an interesting opportunity with this guy to tell the kind of stories where, he and Bruce might have a different relationship than he and Batman do. Mm-hmm. Depending on the current situations happening in Gotham. And it could be interesting to see how that relationship develops over time. Or, do they go another route? And he and Bruce, for some reason, have an adversarial relationship, but he's best buddies with Batman. There's all kinds of different options with this guy of what could happen here. Does he have the potential to be some? I know Two-Face wasn't going for mayor, but he's in a leadership position in the city, very similar to Gordon and what Harvey Dent were back in that day. Do we have a potential to have another character in that spot? And,
definitely. And
I actually, it would be fun to see this character get developed with a family and a place in Gotham before they destroy him horribly.
Yeah. before he dies a tragic death. You know? Let's build him up and let us know who he is.
Let's really love
so
him.
we get a connection to him, and we'll feel bad when he dies.
Yeah, I want to feel like I can hang with him before they destroy him.
Right.
I do like him. I find him interesting. Like, they've already done a really good job of developing him, in the sense that this sequence with Bruce and him sitting there in the hospital, I think is just a really gripping sequence. It's why I'm even bothering to talk about him, because I do think he's an interesting twist to this world. It's added a different dynamic. Gotham's evolved, and that's something that, you know, Bruce is pushing, and this is part of the reason why the Owl Society is targeting him, is this change that he wants to bring to Gotham. The change obviously doesn't benefit the Owls. I love the classics, like the hang glider.
Yes.
You know, it's no matter how much high tech that we see, we talk about super magnets and that, you know, and I agree with you now. I'm more and more I'm thinking about it. I think that was the electricity is part of that whole process. But as much as I love, you know, different new tech gadgets, gizmos, the new vehicles, planes and vehicles, I love all that kind of crazy stuff from Batman. There's something about the classics, and seeing that when he's flying across the moon or the sun, or what, this moon, right?
That's the
It's
moon,
nighttime? Yeah, because it's nighttime. We're seeing that's. There's something special about the hang glider when done right, and you can do little tiny tweaks to it to make it look a little cooler every time. But there's something about it. I just like the whole outfit. I love the whole look. This is a great tweaking of the Batsuit. I know I've said this before on the show. I really like the post-Flashpoint renditions of this newish Batman outfit. I like it. Takes the best of what I liked from Nightwing's suit, you know, when he was Batman, and what I liked about the newer tweaks to Bruce's suit, and it kind of amalgamates them, and it makes him look more a part of that Justice League team with the lines on it as well. And it just all works for me. I really like it. I like the segmented pieces of the glove. You know, like the gloves look very functional, even to the point where they've got like wrist guards and things like that on them. I don't know if you noticed that. Those kind of like fine straps and details there that would add kind of support to all the things he's doing with the swinging and climbing. And there's something, I really love the functional look of various elements of his suit, besides just the scaring people with the, you know, the Batman presence. I've always thought that Batman's suit needs, at its best, is always functional looking, and this is great drawing of Batman's suit.
Well, one of the things with the gloves, you know, a lot of people don't realize just how much damage you do to yourself when you throw a punch. Mm-hmm. You know, if your hands aren't properly wrapped, they're not properly, you know, protected, you could very easily break your hand punching somebody. Now, that's one of the reasons boxing gloves came about. It's not to protect the guy getting punched, it's to protect the fighter throwing the punch, so he can do a full-on blow, everything he has behind it, without banging up his hand, without breaking his hand. And, you know, with some of the stuff on Bruce's, and it's just little simple stuff with, you're talking about the wrist support, because that's something that can give out very easily on a punch. You know, the segmented pieces on the hands, padding over where the different bones are that can break. It's little attention to detail on a Bat costume is what makes you go, that's cool. And it's stuff, I admit, I don't notice until my second or third read-through. That first read-through, I'm focusing on the big stuff. I'm focusing on the story. Like with that whole glider situation, I was reading all the different, you know, the panels that are going along where Bruce is talking about superstition of a city and just everything, how the 13th floor came about. Then it goes into the discussion about owls, how they don't make their own nests, they steal from somebody else. But as they're going on, you look at the backdrop behind him, you look at stuff on the costume, on the suit, on his boots, on his hands, and you see these little extra details. And I was just like, you know, second, third read-throughs are just my art read-throughs that are just sheer enjoyment, because you see Bruce sitting there, he's kind of got a focused look on his face, but just everything behind him. And then when he lands and he's heading towards Wayne Tower, you can see it kind of off in the distance, then he lands at the one kind of gargoyle-ish thing. You're like, oh, okay, it's some really cool backdrop, some really cool ambiance, and just feel to it. And it's something I love how the colorist worked through this page. You know, worked through these sequences, because, you know, when you're dealing with nighttime, you can very easily do too much shadow, so you lose the detail. Here we have some cool color work where we know it's nighttime, we know it's dark because of the toning they went with this, but we don't lose any ounce of detail on the buildings, on Bruce, on his costume, on the room as he's going in. And I love that, you know, part of an artwork.
Now, here's my question. He finds the lair of the owl that's been hunting him down, and it has the glider and workout equipment, and it's clear that this person's, been living here, hiding out for all this time behind the scenes. Is this going to be a modern version of Owlman, or is this separate from that, do you think? Because I don't know that Owlman, the one that was on The Outsiders, still exists, because I don't know that how much of that actually happened.
See, I wasn't thinking any connection to that Owlman or to the other alternate Earth Owlman or any of that stuff. I really was thinking this is a completely different way they're going about it. But this may be what their modern version of what Owlman becomes. Instead of dealing with, an alternate Earth or any other type of Owlman, this could be who Owlman is. And it's kind of neat, when you think about it, because the previous Owlman, I only thought they went with owls because he's another nocturnal, creature. Well, now we're finding out that owls are a natural, predator of bats. And I thought that's a kind of a neat concept to bring into the mix. And just, it's kind of, again, we talked earlier about Bruce's destiny to become Batman. Well, here's his longtime enemy, who is a natural adversary to bats, so it's got to be the owl. And I like, again, more of that destiny to face each other down, and it's the what will happen next.
Yeah, and I wasn't meaning to imply that there was a connection to the alternate Earth. Obviously, I don't think this is an alternate Earth character, and I don't think there's a connection to the Owlman that was on The Outsiders. I don't mean it that way. What I mean is this a reimagining of the Owlman concept? I don't know. A part of me is leaning towards this is totally brand new, and this character will not be called Owlman. There's another part of me that's wondering, though, if this will be, in the end, defined as Owlman. I don't know. Meaning that this new 52's version of Owlman, what an Owlman looks like. I don't know. I don't care either way. It was part of thinking out loud, like wondering where they're going with this. I'm really into it. And this whole Alan Wayne Fund, him trying to find all the buildings and addresses, realizing this is all over Gotham. They've actually got probably more locations of secret bases than he does.
Yeah.
Or at least this guy does. I'm assuming there's still a society, because June 2006.
Yeah, that's the... and it's kind of interesting that there's not more than that in there. There's probably either... Best way to keep a secret is you don't tell people, so it's, it is a good way to keep your numbers, low, and your society can stick around for a while. But he does, if this is such a powerful entity within Gotham, there would be more connections. I'm thinking that's Owlman and the upper crest, the upper echelon. There's probably the minions and the peons below them.
But here's the thing. How do you keep a society secret? If you look back in 1891, there was only 6 of them. If you look in 2006, it's the same number.
Yeah.
I'm not including the one in the center. I'm including, the 3 around the outside. So I'm wondering if there was always, like nobody else, these minions and peons that you were talking about, what if the contacts and all that aren't aware of the society? If it's that behind closed doors that only these 6 are aware. They act as puppet masters, they run under things, but like the people who are actually aware that these secret places exist are few and far between. That does seem more likely to me. The whole place blows up at the end. I want to see how... I love these situations where, especially when for Batman to get caught in a tripwire, that tells you how well that was hidden. Because this is a guy who, it's Batman.
Yeah.
And granted, I know they're saying this is a little bit of a younger Batman, but it's still Batman. I mean, his training still... I mean, for Batman to get caught with his pants down like that, that's a very well-hidden tripwire. And that explosion at the end, how did Batman get out? I'm dying to see how that worked out.
Yeah, and part of me wonders how much of a tripwire as opposed to... Because when you look at the bottom detail of the boot, you got the line where it's going right across the boot, but I don't know if it, in a way, it kind of looks to me like maybe there's something else latched around, like something went wrapped around his foot. So it wasn't just a wire sitting there; it was like a secondary trap that shot out. Kind of like how he'll shoot the boot, his climbing claw and all that. It'll wrap around something.
But artists have a way of showing that motion. I'm not seeing anything in the artwork to indicate any sense of motion other than the tugging that's at the forefront of his foot. I don't see any, they actually will show signs visually of motion of the grappling hook, for example, which you're referencing. you can actually see motion from that in the way that artists draw that. So, because they have, ways of showing us that illusion. I mean, even if you look back at the sequence where he's pulling up, like the manhole cover, you can actually see smoke, moving.
Yeah.
There's a sense of motion to that, where this doesn't have any, it's straight. There's no sense of motion, like wrapping around, where when something wraps around, it kind of kinks a little bit as it does that. Mm-hmm. I don't see any visual sign of that. So I don't know. Well, here's the funny thing. I don't know that I don't know that I'm comfortable saying you're wrong, though. I don't know that I 100% feel that way. I think what I'm more interested in seeing next issue, and I think this is where we're probably both sharing a commonality and where we meet at the end, I think we both want to know what happened.
Yeah, how's he get out? How does he survive this?
And exactly how did, because I'm assuming we're going to see it from his perspective. I hope we get to see it from his perspective next issue. So how did that get around his foot?
Yeah.
So I guess I'm not 100% sure on that either. So I guess why I want to backpedal a little bit and defend you and say that I guess I'm not 100% sure either. I'm taking it to be a tripwire, but I'm not sold that that's exactly what happened either. Because how did Batman get caught by a tripwire? So I don't know. We'll see what happens next issue. I love this book. What a terrific title. I don't care if this character winds up being the new Owlman or if it's something else or, if it is just part of this. I guess what I'm saying is, being the figurehead of this society, there's going to be, it's not just going to be called the Assassin. So I don't know what they're going to call this character. I don't care what.
Right.
I just want to know because I find the character interesting. So it's a cool, well-developed story with a great character, once again, from, the Batman line.
They can call him Hootie.
The other 6 of the Blowfish. All right.
He is called Hawkman. His gauntlets possess awesome powers.
G'day Sean, g'day Jim. It's Brett again calling from Australia. Mate, I was listening to episode 279 whilst I was getting ready to make my call, and you changed what I was going to talk about ever so slightly. The dead hero that I would like to keep around the house, perhaps on a coffee table somewhere or stacked up by the fireplace to help us with those thorny questions and to have a chat to. I reckon would have to be David Knight, Jack Knight, Starman's brother, who was Starman for just that short period of time that we saw dying at the beginning of the Starman series. I think David would be interesting. He'd be a great person to talk to. He knows about legacies. He's absorbed a bit of info from his dad about the old school heroes that I do enjoy in the Golden Age. But not only that, he has the ability to take you into really cool places, pirate ships and graveyards, and walks along the beach and you can see dead relatives and that sort of thing. But of course, and my favourite, is he can also take you to a banquet in which you get to chill out and talk face to face or face to ghostly presence with heroes from the past as well. So, yeah, I reckon the hero that I would like to keep around the house, if I see him on eBay, I'll definitely put in a vote or two, or a bid or two, sorry. It would be David Knight, the David Knight Starman. Now, just quickly on to what was I wanted to phone you boys about. That was Hawk and Dove number 2. Enjoyed Hawk and Dove number 2 a lot more than number 1. I love number 1. My previous rant told you. But number 2 was a lot better. I'm really intrigued by the whole new avatars. We've had this Osprey who was killed. We've got Condor and Swan now getting powers. I'm really intrigued by this idea. What are these people avatars of? How do they interact with the avatars of War and Peace with Hawk and Dove? Very, very interesting idea that I'm looking forward to exploring. And generally I'm not a fan of the villains as mirror counterparts. That sort of trope, I've been reading a lot of comics for a long time, and I think it's a little overdone, but we haven't had this before with Hawk and Dove, with Hank and Dawn, and I think it is a new and fresh idea for them. So I think it'll be a lot of fun to see. The nostalgia kicked in big time for me when we saw Ren Takamori. She's back. That's fantastic. I'm really excited about that. And Hank is going back to school, so we may very well see some nice Hank interaction, see how Hank is just such a lovable dummy, I guess. And I thought it was interesting, again, there's that tension between Ren and Hank because of the relationship he has with Dawn? Are they brother sister? They seem to be. They act like that. Are they something more? And we had that tension as well between Dove and Boston Brand. So I think we're going to have some interesting interactions going on with the new supporting cast. And I have to just agree with Dove at the end of the episode there as they transform, and she tells Hank that bow ties are in this season. Hey man, Doctor Who's been telling us for the last couple of series that bow ties are cool. That's good to see the comics have caught up with the fashion of geeky Time Lords. Good to see. Once again, very much enjoyed the issue a lot more with number 2. I think we got more story, and the subplots are starting to get teased out now, whereas number 1 was pretty much a run-and-gun action kind of opening. Enjoyed this one a lot more, and I think we are going to have an adversarial relationship between Hawk and Detective Watanabe, the new cop character, in much the same way as we had that with Detective Wolfson back in the old run. Really good stuff. Enjoyed it tremendously, and looking forward to listening to the rest of 279. Had to pause when you were talking about Dead Hero because it was so funny, and had to put in my 2 cents worth. And love to hear what you think about Batwoman number 2. Again, I enjoyed it tremendously, and was intrigued again by the page showing the Batman Incorporated and showing people like Azrael disappearing and things like that. And it was interesting that it was Dick Grayson, I think, of Nightwing, was also disappearing from that picture. So I'm not sure what that's alluding to. It's good stuff. Love to hear your opinions as well. And thank you once again for a fantastic show. All right, boys, hope you enjoy the rest of your week. And I look forward to listening to you soon. Thanks, boys. Talk to you later.
I like his comments about Hawk and Dove because I'm not as familiar with Hawk and Dove. They're another team where I'm more familiar with them in a couple issues here and there that I'd actually read of the regular series. But budget-wise, I didn't get to follow Hawk and Dove a lot. So I've been enjoying, as like we've seen Dawn in things like Brightest Day, and her relationship with Deadman, her relationship with Hawk on Birds of Prey. That really has been like kind of my accessibility point to Hawk and Dove. Gotten very into both characters, and I'm into seeing where they go. And actually, I'm into the Hawk and Dove as well, when it was the female Hawk and Dove teamed up together. But this new version of them, well, new old version of them, I should say, is something that I'm really digging. How are you enjoying Hawk and Dove so far? We haven't had a chance to really talk about it on the show other than through voicemails. That is one of the books that we're going to obviously be exploring in the new 52. What is your general kind of impressions about the series Hawk and Dove, though, Jim?
Oh, I'm really digging it. And every issue, it's expanding, and I'm getting more into it. You know, that second issue where we have the introduction of those villains, then third issue as that really started fleshing out, and we're finding out that there's more to this than just Hawk and Dove, and these aren't just like wannabes or mirrors or copycats. There's something more to them. There's this other kind of collective out there that they didn't even realize existed, and that's the part that I'm like, ooh, this. I mean, as I'm reading it, I'm thinking this seems like it's something completely new, because it just has that fresh kind of take to it. It's not just Hawk and Dove, War and Peace. There's something else out there, and that's what I want to see. What's out there? What else is going on with this? With these two?
I really like that we've got Dove appearing in that series, but also appearing in Justice League Dark. And I love that we're seeing an exploration of her relationship with Deadman and how hard that would be when your boyfriend's the kind of guy that like will plug into somebody else's life and somebody else's body, and how disturbing that would be for a partner to not know from day to day who your significant other is currently possessing. It's something that I found interesting. I like seeing Dawn in the Hawk and Dove series, but also seeing the character made available in Justice League Dark. I think she works very well on a team book, but I'm with them. I don't know what the relationship is with Hawk. And that's something that I want to see continue to grow over time. I don't think that's a simple, easy answer. What secrets are being kept in this series? That's part of the fun. I liked his comments, too, about it feeling very action-oriented, because I like that. I like having a book that has an action movie kind of style feel to it, but then there's something more. And that's where the avatars, add this kind of history, like what we didn't know. They're coming from a different kind of philosophical background, and Hawk and Dove have to deal with that, along with their own kind of troubled relationship, because those two operate very differently from each other. Hawk and Dove actually have trouble being on the same page from time to time as well. Cool book. And they love bow ties.
Which, I don't know. I'm not a bow tie guy.
Have you been watching Doctor Who, though?
I know, and you know what? Doctor can pull it off. He does he makes it look good-ish. You got to have the right style. You got to be the right person to pull off a bow tie. But as a general rule, I'm in the no bow tie camp.
Oh, wait, it's not good-ish. Matt Smith pulls it. It works. The Doctor, but I do agree with your disclaimer on there. I don't think it works for everybody, but for the Doctor, it works. David Knight, I like the idea when he was talking about dead characters coming back. I'm a huge Starman fan, but I like choosing the brother, because that's a character that's untapped. We got to see him in this kind of like ethereal form. It would be fun to have him explore some of the, like what other ghostly characters, both hero and villain, can he see? And it'd be kind of cool for him to be able to maybe see. I love the idea. I don't think we're going to see this book ever, but I loved his idea of but David could see all the dead characters. And what if he could see dead characters from a different universe, different world of the multiverse? And what would that be like, for him to kind of explore what it's like, be kind of a Pirates of the Caribbean film kind of thing, seeing these ghostly characters. It had a creep factor. I agree with them with the whole pirate ship and stuff like that. I don't know, that was my favorite thing about Starman, was when it felt like it was a part of a larger universe to a certain extent, yet there was something about Opal that was kind of untouched. Like, it had like a big wall around it. That there were things that would happen in the DC universe, and it could be a part of some of the big events that were going on in it. But in the end of the day, Starman always felt like it was its own world. Kind of like the Flash's world of Central City feels like. Like, I have no trouble seeing the Flash on a team, Justice League and stuff like that. But when you go to Central City, it does feel a lot different than the rest of the DCU. I think that's really important. Kind of like Gotham does. I think Batman has that feel. Metropolis has that feel. Paradise Island has that feel. These are iconic places that have kind of their own kind of legacy, their own kind of universe, their own feel. And him, ghostly version of Opal City, and maybe even the whole universe, because of the fact that David's a dead character, would be kind of fun to see what that was like. We're not going to see that book, I don't think, but it was a cool idea.
Yeah.
Well, Batwoman. How are you enjoying that series? Because he referenced that.
I'm absolutely loving Batwoman. It's an ongoing that just, it hit the ground running for me. It had great groundwork, the pre-reboot, and the post is continuing right where what I enjoyed last time continued on, and she's an awesome character. I'm loving the development of her supporting cast. I'm invested in her, but I'm also invested in Batwoman. Both, the private, the person, as well as the hero. And that's huge for me. And that's, for me, when I think off page, when I think, not just about what's the superhero getting involved in, what's the person dealing with, that is a sign of a good book, a sign of something that has me locked in.
I like Betty. I like the sidekick, the fact that she's...
Glebe.
Yeah, but I like that now she has donned her old costume.
Yeah.
As your way to say, okay, hey, you're going to shut me out. You're keeping me out of being a part of Batwoman and everything that you're doing. Well, then fine. I am going to show you. Fine. You tell me I'm done, that you're done with me. And Batwoman's trying to protect her. But in many ways, I also think Kate is trying to protect herself. She can't take any more responsibility. And it's going to be interesting to see her come to resolving that. Is girlfriend Maggie Sawyer, going to be a source of strength? I love how she skips out on the date with Maggie out of no choice of her own. It really is the circumstances of being Batwoman. That is her first responsibility. This is where being a vigilante is so hard. Kate's found this woman who she loves, this woman who she has found a relationship with. She's found something that connects the two of them. In many ways, when she's with Maggie, she can really be herself. But she's also got that problem with being Batwoman is so important to her. And making a difference as Batwoman, and being this person that she got thrown out of the military, had to leave the military because of who she is and her background and all that. Everything that she's lost along the way. Her relationship with Dad, how troubled that's been. And this is the one thing where she feels like she's really making a difference, especially with the loss of her twin sister and everything. And for Maggie and that relationship to be in such turmoil, you got to wonder, is it ever going to be possible for Kate to have a lasting relationship, something that can go on? I want to see it happen because I like her and Maggie together. I like how there's times where, like, Maggie, considering the fact that Maggie Sawyer is a police officer and all the clues are there for her to follow and to dig in deep, she's respectful of Kate and Kate's privacy, understanding that there's a deep emotional problem that she's going through, but she's there. She only lets Kate feed her what Kate wants to, what Kate's ready to, but she's there and she's supportive. That's very hard to do. And I think that's something that's very hard for any person to learn how to do sometimes, to say, hey, wait, I got to respect the boundaries that she's putting in there and let her, when her time is right, to reveal what she needs to reveal to me. There's something so deep about that book and the relationship between the two of them that I'm very into their relationship, because I think it's, forget the fact that it's two women, a guy and a girl, or two guys, or whatever, whatever the relationship is. There's an honesty to that relationship that I think we can all learn something from, and it's very well written. It's cool.
Definitely.
So it's, I don't know, it's a book that obviously I really like the book.
Yeah.
But, and you know what I love about it? I'm really digging Batgirl for the same reason. I loved the exploration of the relationship between Nightwing and Barbara in the most recent issue. But it's a very different, honest relationship between the two of them. The history between the two of them is a very honest and different relationship. I love that you can have Batgirl and Batwoman both running as two very interesting and very successful DC books, and they feel completely different. They're two characters that are very valid, have a very strong place. As different as having Dick Grayson as Nightwing and Bruce Wayne running around as Batman. There's just those characters each have a spot. Same thing with the two women, and I love that. I love that there's something very distinct and unique about both characters, whether or not they're wearing a bat suit or not.
Hey guys, just listening to the latest episode, and you're talking about Isamai getting his limbs ripped off. I guess his people can regrow their limbs, because you may not remember, but his buddy Vath Sarn, he got his legs chopped off in I want to say Blackest Night, and then Isamot volunteered his legs to be grafted to Vath, because Isamot can actually grow his limbs back. That's like a feature of their species. So, little nerdy note for you. But I agree. I love Isamot and Vath Sarn from the Green Lantern Corps. Those were two of my favorite characters. Keep on raging. Love the show. Bye.
I'm so glad he called, and I feel like such a dope. Because the second I was hearing that email, I totally forgot that Isamot could do that. Because I thought, okay, what are they going to do with Isamot now, that he's been chopped up into pieces? Did you remember that?
No, I did not remember that. And Isamot can talk with the ring on his tongue, unlike me.
I would kill to have your tongue taken away. And I would still do a podcast with you.
Then I would reach for my yellow ring, and I would just,
Isa whatnot.
I would have to talk through the yellow ring.
Isa whatnot.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, I completely forgot about the limbs growing back, and I remembered what's his name losing his, but I completely forgot about everything about with him offering up the legs and just everything that happened there. So thank you.
Yeah, it's funny when we talk about a particular book series or things like that. You'll focus on certain characters and certain things going on, and you try to remember everything about those characters. And I love Isamat. I actually loved it, but it's funny how what I remember about that character so much is the Rand Thanagarian relationship that was going on, because I loved that dynamic between the two when those characters were first becoming Green Lanterns, and how they had to deal with becoming respectful of each other in spite of the different relationships between their cultures. I think that's where something you can learn a lot from comics is in how these characters, especially from outer space, learn how to deal with each other and respect the differences that come naturally because of that. I love that. I know it's just something that I thought was super cool about that series, but I totally forgot about the fact that he's able to grow those, so I don't feel so bad about it now. I actually kind of like the fact that, okay, how is he going to live if he didn't have those limbs? So I'm almost a little bit sad in a creepy kind of way that we're not going to see him deal with that. With the tongue on the tongue where his ring was.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, don't tell me you weren't. Tell me, wait. You thought that's how he was going to be, and you didn't you think that was interesting to see how he was going to deal with things?
I was thinking that he would use the ring to regrow his limbs. It would be green energy that is replacing his limbs.
That's what I mean, though. That would have been interesting to see how that dynamic worked out.
Oh, okay.
Which is what we discussed when we were discussing it. I wasn't saying that he was going to keep it totally on his... Well, except here's the thing.
That's what I thought you said.
No, but wait, Jim, it would have to stay on his tongue, because if you regrow the limbs through the ring, it can't really be maintained on the limbs. Because the limbs aren't really there. They're only there because he is using his willpower to create the limbs. So yes, I do say that. The ring would have had to stay somewhere like on his tongue, but the limbs themselves would have been there through willpower. You weren't thinking he would have actual real limbs, were you?
I was thinking he would have a green energy and the ring would be on the green energy.
But it can't, because it wouldn't really be attached to him.
Well, that's why he'd have to will it really hard.
But that still doesn't mean that they're there. They can't put the ring on something that, doesn't exist. It has to be actually attached to them, doesn't it? I can't think of any of the lanterns that don't have the ring attached to them.
There was somebody who lost their hand.
Right.
And I thought they did that, where it was an energy hand with the ring.
But the ring was on the other hand, not on the energy hand they created.
See, I could have swore it was on the energy hand.
I don't think so. I think it has to actually physically be on them. I was under the impression that, it's kind of silly now, but I was thinking about how interesting it would be to see, how, because I was with you. I agreed that I thought the limbs would come from, his own willpower on it, but it doesn't need to. I think that's really funny.
Okay.
Because I was so into the idea of seeing him, do that. I'm like, we're not going to see that now. Actually, and you know what? I do like the idea better that he is going to get all of his limbs back, because I love the character. So if there's somebody who I want to see, survive all that, I think it's super cool that he did. But, because he could have died there, much less.
Very easily.
Yeah. So you got to give him credit for the risk that he put himself at. But I love that I was thinking that was what was going to... I had no idea he was going to have limbs again.
Hi, Sean and Jim. It's Rob McIntyre from the UK. I'm just leaving you a follow-up call on the one I left last week. I've just read Legion Lost issue 2, and it's totally changed my mind on how I see issue 1. I've now read issue 1 and 2 back together, and I've found them very enjoyable, excellent in fact, and issue 1 now reads a lot better. So this is a book that I'm going to be stopping with, so I just thought I'd give you a quick call to let you know that I'm very happy with Legion now. Thank you, guys. Bye.
And anybody feel free to call up and let us know if there's a title that, you had certain feelings about with issue 1, but you stuck with it to see how the series would develop, especially if, the series has improved with you in such a way where you're like, wow, I was on the fence about this one, wasn't sure if I was going to keep this title. I gave it a shot for a couple issues, and I'm so glad I did because of this reason. Because I do think that the reason, you and I talked about on the show, the reason why with issue 3 we loved Legion Lost so much. But I do think that there's different reasons, different ways that people would connect. Just because you and I liked it for certain reasons. Well, actually, you and I even talked about there's certain characters that we each prefer in Legion Lost. You know, there's certain ones that are hooked with us that are characters that we're kind of leaning towards. And I kind of like that about the book. Because do you have a favorite Legionnaire from Legion Lost? Like, who is the one that, like, is there somebody, or is it the whole team? What is it for you?
See, right now, I think it's the adventure and the what's going to happen next. It's the learning about some of these characters that I have no idea about. I have no understanding of them, and learning the unknown. And I think that for me is my favorite part of Legion Lost. Is there's so much I don't know about them, and I'm getting an education on them. Plus, there's where this can go, the variety that this can go off of, that off-page thinking for me on this book has been astronomical. And it's funny because I really enjoy Legion of Superheroes. I'm really enjoying that title. I'm like, yeah, Legion, all right, I got my ring on. I'm, hoorahing with everybody. But that Legion Lost, for me, is beating Legion. Just because of the unknown factor of it. Just because of I don't know where they're going to go with this. And I think that, for me, it's the anticipation of the unknown and seeing where it goes and how it plays out is really got me going, oh, man, this is cool.
Yeah, I think for me, that's one of the things that I like is the distinct difference between two titles. Like, Legion Lost is terrific because it really is them having to look at, first of all, this whole genetic thing that they've got to deal with. The fact that realistically, who is responsible for the fact that everybody could turn into the aliens and it could really destroy the human race as we know it? Because it is, I don't think that there is anybody who's safe from being affected by this. I think it is something that over time, at least that's the impression I get, over the time it's so germophobic, and it's so something where, just being near somebody, you could, become a part of this, that eventually you're going to gain this disease. Is that the way you're taking it, or is it limited?
No, I'm thinking this is a nasty spreading one. This is a very highly contagious, airborne and or physical presence. I think if we're seeing something manifest in a city, that means it's spreading throughout that city. It's not just one entity in there. It's growing. This is a possible worldwide epidemic that needs to get shut down quickly.
I also wonder if different people are more susceptible to being contagious from it. Like, for example, like if you and I both got the disease, I wonder if it's possible, like, I could be more contagious than you would be, perhaps, just because of the kind of alien that I become. Like, I might be more susceptible to being somebody, if you're around me, I'm more contagious, but maybe you would be less contagious to people. And but it might be easier for them to determine that you've caught it than me because of the type of alien that I am from it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Definitely.
I like that kind of twist to the whole thing. It's fun. It's a fun series right now, and I'm really digging it. And I like the fact that these are people who, they're dealing with the fact that they're very used to a certain kind of Legion that they're a part of, with a certain kind of scientific background. And this really is a chance for us to see a different type of Legion of the Superheroes story, because they can't rely on having like a Brainiac 5 there, for example, to be very scientific in all this. These are people who've really got to, adapt in a different way. And that was something I really enjoy about the series. So it's cool. I agree with them. It's gotten better as it's gone along. And each issue has been one that's gotten me more excited on the development of the characters. I don't know if I would say, it's going to be fun because you and I are going to talk about issue 3 of the regular series. I don't know if I would say I like one more than the other. I think the two books take place in two very different time periods. I like the distinction of the two different time periods. It'll be fun to talk about that, because I don't know, I'm not saying you're necessarily wrong for feeling that way. I don't know if I feel the same way you do. It'll be interesting to see why you feel the way you do when we talk about the regular Legion series as well. Kind of fun.
Come on, Skreel. Let's pay these Plutonian beam makers a visit.
And our next book will be Blue Beetle number 3. It's written by Tony Bedard, penciler I.G. Guerra, inker J.P. Mayer, colorist Pete Pentezis, letterer Rob Lay, with covers by Tyler Kirkman, Sal Riegla, and Sonia Obach, with associate editor Rex Ogle and editor Eddie Berganza.
Did you say Tyler Kirkman?
Oh, Kirkham.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
It's the Green Lantern artist.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to make sure, because I know his work for Top Cow too. So that's the only reason why it stood out for me. Normally, I don't. I'm in the same boat with you. I'm butchering names, but I'm a fan of his work. So, and I really like that cover.
oh yeah. And that's just poor reading on my part. I saw Kirk and then the thing, and I just saw man. I thought it was man.
Oh, I do it all the time. So. Now, this is a book that I'm really enjoying because while it's sticking to the basic Blue Beetle story that we've read previously, it's also modernizing it a little bit. It's actually giving it more of a horror feel. And I really like that the Scarab has a lot more of a sentient presence and that there's more Scarabs. Like, this isn't one Scarab, this is one of many Scarabs. What happens when they coming back for their technology.
Yeah, well, that's kind of sticking to what happened at the end of the last Blue Beetle run. And I like the fact that they're bringing this forward right from the get-go and right from the beginning. Just the concept, because if you remember back when, last time when Jaime had to reboot the Scarab was a lot meaner and a lot nastier, and it was more of the I am a killing machine style, whereas beforehand, when it was more of Jaime in control of it, it's, there's just a, kind of, friendly symbiotic relationship. So here he's starting off with the Scarab wanting to be in control, and because that's the quote unquote normal for them. So he's got to work it out with him, and they got to kind of come to an understanding. Plus, he's kind of got to knuckle up and take a little bit of pain, and I like seeing that.
Wasn't part of what happened with the Scarab in the previous series though due to his buddy that he was palling around with too? Wasn't there a connection with them? Wasn't that why it became a little bit more violent, because the connection to him too? Because he had some kind of symbiotic connection as well because of that whole twist of what happened. I liked that in the end of the series, how they brought him, his biker buddy.
Yeah.
That came in. I liked him as well in the series. I thought he had something to do with the behavior of the Scarab at that point. I thought part of his personality was a part of that, if I remember. I might be totally off on that. But for some reason, I remember there being a connection.
Well, the Scarab before was, it is damaged here as well, but there was more damage last time, and even a piece of the Scarab was in the other guy, so There was a connection between that way. So there was multiple personalities working there.
But I thought his more violent streak was what bringing about the violent streak in the Scarab that Jaime was having to deal with, because he was dealing with that guy's personality being a part of the mixture. Which this is different because the Scarab's coming from this race that is about destroying worlds, including oftentimes the world of the host. So what is the goal here with Jaime? Is Jaime meant to be the advanced scout? Because he's now been absorbed or symbiotically absorbed. And the fact that this thing is broken is enabling him as much control as he is. I don't know, or maybe he understands the Scarab in a way that some of the other hosts haven't. I don't know.
Well, it's, again, the interconnection between the two of them. And it's, last time there was some funniness to it, and here we're seeing more of a violent, reaction, a violent outburst. And I kind of like seeing Jaime having to keep the thing in control and keep the thing backed off, saying, hey, hold on.
Now, does Ladama knows it's Jaime who has the Scarab, right?
Yeah, she figured it out, because his Hector, his buddy, was like, hey, 1 minute we're being chased, next minute he's gone, and there was just that whole, she's smart enough to put two and two together, and she basically probably even figured out that he's been put, inside the Blue Beetle costume. Yeah,
that's the part where that's a gray area for me. I don't know how much she knows about him being Blue Beetle, other than that he had the backpack. So I think that part is court's still in session as far as what's happening there, but I'm with you. It kind of leans towards that. I love the mom being immediately worried about her son. He hasn't come home. He was with you last. And he's saying, there's this super gang warfare going on. In this world, it'd be very common to say, you don't understand. Super dudes are coming from out of nowhere, including some big Clay guy. I love seeing Clayface in this. Yeah. It's these guys being brought in as mercenaries and in groups and having to deal with the fact that, hey, we sent you out to get this scarab. Where is it? And we don't see who they're talking to until the very end.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out, who this big bad was that they were talking to. I still don't know who it is.
Yeah, we still don't know who the big boss is, which adds to some neatness to this. And one of the cool things with the Beetle, the character, the story, everything that's going on is he's got so much craziness for a normal teenager. And with the stuff he's dealing with, you add the superhero element to it, it takes it up to, it turns it up to 11. And I love seeing just, on the one panel, the opening page, you have all three things laying out. You got the parents, you got his, the Ladama and his buddies, and then you got these villains that are saying, hey, wasn't our fault, trying to, make peace with the big boss. Right here, you're seeing that this kid's got a lot of stuff dealing with, and then you flip over and you start seeing that he's got even more with, being with the scarabs taking him over.
You know what? The next page, though, says a lot to me. This, to me, if someone has asked me what's Blue Beetle all about, I would show them this page. My favorite images of Blue Beetle, I think back to that one Freddie Williams did, where Blue Beetle was flying after Superman, had a big smile on his face. This smile on his face, in spite of all of the stuff going on around him, he finds time to smile about the fact that he can fly. That's something I really like about Blue Beetle. I've always thought of him as, and I want to be cautious about this, I've always thought of him as DC Spider-Man. And I don't mean to say that he's cookie cutter to that character or anything like that, but he's kind of that character that he makes superheroing fun in spite of horrible things going on around him. There's that part of him where you're like, oh, God, I wish I could be that. That's the kind of superhero I want to be. Peter Parker always made me feel that way. And it's something about that, like, teenage, kind of being able to see the coolness and the fun factor of, this new game of being able to, Peter was swinging webs and catching bad guys, and there's something to being Spider-Man. He would joke around and have fun with it. Jaime's not as slapstick, and I don't necessarily need to see him do that, but there's a fun factor to him. There's a likability to him that's instantaneous. And I do think that there is a good comparison to the Spider-Man style. It's what I like about Invincible by Kirkman, for example. These characters, like these three, could do a team-up. They could be on a great buddy team. Spider-Man, Invincible, and Blue Beetle. And I think every universe needs a character like this. Just a likable, accessible, cool guy. And this is a guy who should be a cartoon character. I mean, he has been in Batman Brave and the Bold, but I could see him carrying his own animated series, a la Static Shock, for example. And being something that I think this is a character who hasn't been tapped yet the way that he should be. His appearance in Smallville was absolutely fantastic. The stuff we've seen from him in Batman Brave and the Bold has been cool. I love that little test shot stuff that they made for him back, the live action test shot footage with him. There's something cool about this character.
There is a connectability to him, and there's a you threw it out there with the Spider-Man, and it's common comparison, but it is a coolness that I do like about him. It's, you talk about just the grin on his face and just everything that, where he starts going through, and the fact that he doesn't know what the heck he's doing. I always enjoy that, with this character that, hey, I could do that. Oh, wow, cool. Hey, what's that? What's going on here? And there's that mystery and that shock to him. The Scarab didn't come with an owner's manual. It's just, do what you're supposed to do. Don't think about it, and it's kind of the Scarab wants to be in control of him. He doesn't want that. It's the whole, the who he is.
I like the idea that I can't go home looking like this. This is something where, as cool as it was flying and all that, this can't stay this way. Not realizing you can't give this up, but it is that kind of panic and terror. We've all been there. I wish it was for this reason. Like, we've all been in that type of thing where, I can't go home with this. Or most of the times we have to suck it up and do it. But in this case, there was a reality to it that I really enjoyed. The whole birthday party, the whole supporting cast. I'm glad Brenda's back. I'm glad Paco's back. This was a cast that was very well developed in the first series. And it's something that there's a lot of room for re-explanation and reimagining of them, true. But these are characters who really, I thought, like, it wasn't just about Jaime. It was his world, and it was a unique environment that was created. His family was a really important character cast in this, and I'm glad they're being brought back into the whole thing. So it's really a good foundation for starting this off. It definitely has a darker tone to it than the first series, which is working for me. And that's not a knock on the first series, but it's, what my first question is going to be, what is different? If we're going to retread this ground, it's got to have a different feel, and it does. This is a very different feel and flavor to it. So it's not a matter of a preference over A or B. It's more of it's great to have a fresh feel to this.
Yeah, and I'm glad with that Brenda's aunt is this massive criminal boss, and just we're seeing her magic powers right from the get-go. These are things that all came out eventually, but I'm glad to see they're throwing it out there right away, that it's not just going to be about Jaime getting the scarab and doing the scarab. They got to make sure the rest of the universe is there as well, and it's a well balance. You can have a book where it's just focused on one person, but for me, an element of realism is if there's what's around him, who's he dealing with, and it's, again, I'm really happy with this.
The interconnectivity with the aliens right from the get-go, and then the adversarial relationship with the Green Lanterns, I think is something that was really important to start from the get-go this way. It adds the idea that Blue Beetle's adventures don't have to just be limited to Earth. You can add space adventures in with this kid. That's something that I really like right from the get-go. There's, like, any kind of Blue Beetle story can be told because of this, and I like that. This idea, though, of looking at his family and saying, okay, I can see them. They're worried sick about me. There's a guilt factor about that. I need to get back to them so they know what's going on, but yet I don't want to involve them in the middle of all this as well. And Mom's yelling at LaDama. Now, keep in mind, LaDama's a gang boss. She's a crime leader. Dad knows this. And he's sitting here like, wait a minute, what are you doing? There's only so far you can go with this before we're going to wind up dead, and that's something that you have to watch out for as well. And I like that aspect of all this, because there's a reality there where Dad's got to be the rational one in a situation where emotions are going to run high. Your son's missing. It's his son too, but he's the leader of the family, and he's got to take a step up at this point. But there was something honest and true of a mother protecting her son the way that she is. I love that. It was a duality of parents that I think in you don't always get to see. And It was kind of cool to see in this case, the two parents able to interact and interplay, and that they both bring something to the table. Sometimes if it's a single parent, the mom has to take on both parents' roles. If it's a single dad, the dad has to take on both parent roles. In this case, you get to see what they bring to the table there. And I don't know, I really liked that because it felt very honest and real.
Yeah, and as I'm reading that, I'm like, ooh, this is not a good thing. And when they flip the page and they show her reaction to it, she's kind of got a, look to it, which is the only thing saving her. I guess she's more focused on getting the scarab than the insult she just received, because that could very easily end up with the family being just destroyed. Because it's about how many times have we seen in a really good Penguin story where someone laughs or scoffs in his direction and he completely destroys that person for no reason. That stuff does happen when you're dealing with these criminal bosses, when you're dealing with these very evil and very powerful people. And I love seeing her have that kind of attitude, and then she just snaps, bam, and slaps the one her one minion, and you really see just the anger, and that she this is what we got to do. I need this back now. And then right from there into, again, back to calmness, where she, she's cutting up Coyote and using the blood for her spell ritual. Very just, this is nothing. This is everyday occurrence for me. I love seeing just that emotional gambit she ran through in just a couple pages.
I don't think it was just an emotional gambit, though. She's in a position of power. She was just being yelled at on the phone. She can't let that stand in front of her people. Like, she has to immediately recapture the position of power right there. She can't leave that scolding and just kind of walk off. And, she could have left that situation without slapping him, true. But if she did that, her authority, she just got yelled at by a mom. Her authority would come into question. Couldn't let that happen. I love that. That is something that's, for me, I found that part of it, it was dual layered. I agree with you that there was definite anger and emotion coming from that. But there was more to it than that I really liked. Now, when she does slice him, Yeah, he wants to help, but I don't think this is what he had in mind.
Yeah. Well, hey, he's a team player. That's good to see. Good for him. Bad results, but hey, you know what? You helped out the team. We're all about home team here. Good for you. Thanks, and we'll go bury him in the backyard. Dig a hole for him.
So Jaime right here is working out a deal with the Scarab. And this was interesting, the pain that he goes through in the change. The change is not something... And I wonder, is that the actual physical process of it or the mental process of asserting your will when it comes to the symbiote? Is there kind of like the relationship that the Green Lanterns have with their rings? Is this something where Jaime's going to have to learn how to change back? And is it going to be painful for him every time to do that? I don't know.
I hope not, because it's going to be tough on the guy. But I did like seeing this because in all previous versions, the symbiote doesn't change back. Once it bonds with the human host, that's it. You're in for life. And in the other previous stuff, you have no control over the symbiote. It's not a symbiotic relationship, it's a parasitical relationship. It comes in and it takes over the host body, and that's all you are, is the physical host. You're not anything in control, but this one's been damaged. This one's got a little bit of a tweaking to it, and Jaime's able to communicate with him, was able to actually do this stuff. I think, as time's going to go on, that's going to be part of the growth process, part of the power set, for Jaime is to do this and, get an understanding with the symbiote. Hopefully the Scarab itself will learn from him, and we'll see kind of a partnership between the two of them.
Well, we do see him in this try to teach it about family.
Yeah.
Which was something that I found that was interesting. I also like when he switched back in his family season for the first time, you actually still see the glowing portion of the Scarab in his back.
Yeah.
Like it's actually still there. It doesn't completely vanish. So he's going to need shirts to cover that up. No swimming at the local pool.
Yeah.
But I like the family's immediate relief, but I also like that considering what happened with Ladama, Dad's coming out with a gun ablazing.
Well, what? You kind of think about everything that they've had that night, and the fact that the mom, just did call her out. He's got to, think twice. And I thought that was cool that he was doing that. Or it could just be the neighborhood they're in, and he heard a loud scream, and he's like, "Okay, I'm going out prepared." You can read that multiple different ways.
I'm curious to see what this Brotherhood is. Is it one of the groups that we've seen prior to? Is it a new version of a group that we've seen previously? We're going to see Mashumala in the brain and stuff like that, or is this going to be totally new group that we've never seen before? In Paris, France, we see this group with this whoever Silverback is. To me, Silverback didn't look like Silverback was joining the group, even though he said that he was invited to join, because it seems like he's separated from the group. Although he's saying that he never lets him down, I could see him being like the bad boy of the group. I wonder how big this... Is this going to be the new Furious 5 or something like that? Because, there's 4 of them now. Then the boss would be the 5th? I don't know.
Yeah, to me, it's more like he works for the big boss as well. And he's not part of them. He's, works for the boss. So it's an accompaniment. And I kind of like the fact that it's, to me, it looks like it's a playoff of the Silverback Gorilla. But it's not just a gorilla person. It's got the cybernetic... big guns, big weapons, a lot of boom and a lot of bang, and I kind of like that.
Yeah, I do too. This is a good book. I really like... What I like about it is, at its core, it kept all of the foundation of what made Blue Beetle interesting. But at the same time, it made it a little darker, a little edgier, and that's not a knock, like I said, on the first series. I just think, to me, it feels new, even though we've read this before. To a certain extent, we read a lot of the same kind of progression with the character, but things are in a lot, like, they introduce things, I think, that need to be introduced for where the direction of this series is going faster than they did in the original series. So, I don't know, I think Bedard did a really good job of taking bits and pieces from all of the different people who've touched Blue Beetle since the character's been in existence, even including his Teen Titans appearances, and put them together and made a really nice package for this character. And I'm hoping people are giving this a chance that maybe haven't before, because he's a very interesting and fun character. I really like him. And I actually like that the Scarab is a lot more frightening. now than it was before. Like, as much as I love the fact that he's smiling and loves flying and all that other stuff, the Scarab's going to be a handful and a half for him.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a definite evolution and part of the character, part of the what it takes to become Blue Beetle is going to be those two learning to work together. The Scarab learning from Beetle, learning from Jaime learning from the Scarab. That's kind of something I'm thinking about off page, and I'm wondering where it's going to go, especially, with just his complicated life that he already has is getting worse. And it's, so the Jaime stuff is going to be just as interesting as the Blue Beetle stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Reaching melting point. Not sure we can make it.
G'day Sean, g'day Jim, it's Brett from Australia calling you again. Second time tonight, I apologise for stalking you guys. This one's, as Monty Python would say, something completely different. Wanted to bring your attention to a book that's coming out from Marvel. It's coming out in January. It will be in the next preview. That should be out this week or next week. It's Volume 1 of Strike Force Morituri. It was a series from back in the 80s that I adore, one of my all-time favourite series. I could not recommend it more. I'm sure if you run through DCBS or in-stock trades, they'll have it at a really, really good price. Strike Force Morituri, fantastic premise. It's a future Earth which is invaded by aliens called the Horde, and some scientists have figured out a way to give ordinary human beings superpowers. The catch being that these superpowers will kill you within 12 months. So we get to see why people would want to get these powers and what they do to strike back at the enemy before they die. The idea is a little like Thunder Agents that we saw again not so long ago from DC. For mine, it's so much better in terms of the execution. The fact that it's a war that's going on really heightens the tension, and it's an amazing series. If you're interested in sci-fi at all, it's well worth it. The alien horde is very interesting. The ship's not cool. The alien language is a little hard to read sometimes. The way they did the lettering was a bit strange, but we do get a decent look inside the alien creatures after a while and the way their society works and that sort of thing. But the fact that you have these bright young heroes that are destined to die and die very quickly makes for some fantastic stories, especially in the first 12 issues where we get to see what their missions are going to be like and some of the frustration that the heroes have that they're not doing as much as they think they could and things like that. So sorry it's not a DC book I'm talking about, but I have to recommend this. It is one of my favourite series of all time, and I cannot recommend it highly enough. If you only buy one trade paperback next year, I reckon it should be Strike Force Morituri Volume 1, unless Volume 2, 3 and 4 come out next year as well, in which case buy all 4 of them. Well worth it, Strike Force Morituri. And it also has some great art. I think there's early work by Will Spataccio, and I think it's the very first Marvel work by Mark Bagley, who has gone on, of course, to do magnificent things, and I'm sure will continue to be a big name as we roll on. It's a fantastic story. Have a look online and read a little more about it if you do want a bit more information, but seriously, don't bother. Go and pick it up. You will love it. Cannot recommend it more. Once again, boys, thanks for your show, and I'll happily see you soon. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Jim. Look after yourselves, boys.
Did you ever get a chance to read any Strike Force Morituri? I mean, was that anything? I read that years ago, and I got to admit, I didn't read every issue of it. I'm loving the fact that that's going to be republished. I know it's a Marvel book, too, but it is something I never got a chance to read all of it. It was another one of those where I got to read, like, multiple issues, and then it just budget-wise didn't fit into my budget. Unfortunately, at the time, it wasn't an issue of quality. It was an issue of it just didn't fit into the budget. So I love that that's being collected. That is one of the great thing about trades is going back through classic history and it not always being some of the obvious ones. You know, some of the characters that we're all expected to know or all expected to think of. I'm glad that he brought that up because it's something that I didn't realize that was coming out. I'll definitely be seeking Yeah, feel free. Anybody who calls in, you're welcome to shout out something that's outside of DC as well. I mean, we're obviously mainly a DC podcast, but I've got no problem with, he certainly called in and gave DC enough shout outs in there. So certainly go ahead and throw in a Marvel one. I'm not neither of us are anti-Marvel or any other comic company. So go ahead and shout out anything that you think would be relevant to the listening base. That's a cool one, though. It's definitely a series that I recommend, too, and something I would seek out. Especially, I liked the link to what DC's been doing. And I can't wait to see, because that series, Thunder Agents, is coming back to DC. Yeah. And I think it's going to be done in arcs, very similar to like the first series of issues that we got. I think they're going to be publishing the series that way, is my understanding at least of it. I can't wait for Thunder Agents to come back. So certainly Strikeforce Mortuary's and there's enough different to it. He's right. With it being set in a war zone, I do like the idea of a comic series where it does show the negative side of getting powers, and also that not everybody should necessarily have powers. That's something that Thunder Agents faces too, that not everybody's, the best choice for being a Thunder Agent. And I don't know that I want to be a Thunder Agent any more than I want to be a part of Strikeforce Mortuary, but sometimes war makes it necessary that you have to be. And life in Thunder Agents, there is a lot of parallels there. Life in Thunder Agents often makes you have a need to become a part of Thunder Agents. So there is a nice parallel between those two series, and there is something there for fans of Thunder Agents. If you want to get an extra fix of that type of story, look no further. So it's a good recommendation.
Am I the only person who just kept singing Thunder, Thunder, every time you kept saying Thunder Agents? Is it just me?
Well, I certainly wasn't, but...
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty cool concept.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because I really dug Thunder Agents, and I have read Strikeforce Mortuary. I haven't read all of it, so I'm glad that he gave the shout out that that's going to be coming out in collected editions, and hopefully it does well, because I'm a big fan of collected editions, especially of titles that I haven't read before, because I like to read them in trade paperback volumes, because the nice part is there's a nice breaking point, so I can read a trade here and there and get caught up on a book in between reading, like sometimes on a break or something like that, or on a few days off, I'll read something extra, and that is when I get to trades and things. That's what you and I talk all the time about our pile of trade paperback books. But it is commentary like Brett's just now that does push up a trade paperback in its location in my stack of titles to read. So that's kind of cool.
Hey guys, Tom Sanderson here. I've been listening to your overviews of the 52 books and been enjoying it very much. And after hearing you both rant about a couple titles that I had not picked up, I went out today and purchased Nightwing #1 and #2 and Aquaman #1 and #2. Today I was able to read Nightwing 1 and 2 and Aquaman 1. And I didn't think I would like Aquaman, but after hearing you guys go completely ballistic over it, I was hoping for the best and was very pleasantly surprised. I loved it. And I'm not really usually a big Aquaman fan, but I thought it was just a very exciting story. I didn't know that he could bounce or propel himself in giant single bounds like that on land. But that was kind of a cool thing. But everything you guys said when you were talking about the Aquaman book concerning the graciousness of Aquaman and the diner and all, you just hit it right on the head. It was a lot of great sequences and some beautiful artwork, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the rest of Aquaman has in store. As far as Nightwing, from page 1, I was like hooked. The other two books that you've really been kind of going nuts over, Animal Man and the Jonah Hex thing, American Westerns or whatever, I have yet to pick up yet. I'm really kind of primarily superhero, Justice League, top 10 Justice Leaguers from the Silver Age kind of fan. Never been a big fan of Buddy Baker, but then again, I haven't read a ton of them. But I think I'm going to hold off on that unless I hear, a bunch more of your callers come in and rave about those 2 books, and then I might have to check it out. I picked up the Frankenstein book today as well and kind of thumbed through it. And I didn't see anything that really looked like it would grab my attention, so I put it back. But what I will probably pick up as well is the Batgirl. Batgirl 1 was not in the store at the time, but I did pick up Batgirl 2. And I'm not going to read that till I've read Batgirl 1. But anyway, DC owes you guys a great thank you and shout out, because you definitely are getting people to buy more of their books, which is a very cool thing. And I always enjoy what you guys have to say about each of the titles that you're reading. Just listen to you try to pick your top 10. And I can't believe you're reading most of the titles out of the 52. That's going to be a giant expenditure on your part. But then again, after hearing that Sean's been dropping $120 a month on video games, I guess the money's there. So anyway, talk to you guys later. Thanks for everything. Have a great rest of your week. Jim, hope you had a great time in New York. Sean, have a great time in the Ohio Con. And we'll be talking to you. See ya.
Yeah, I actually had to give up a game system.
Yeah.
I used to have a PlayStation 3, and I willingly did that, not because, it was really had to take a look at similar to what you're talking about, Jim, earlier in the episode. You were talking about how, you have to watch yourself and set a budget for yourself and things like that. I had to, too. I had to really say, what's the most important thing to me? So I love video games, and I love games, but, I had to really take a look at the types of games that I choose now tend to be more like I'm enjoying the DC Universe Online game, having a lot of fun with that. I'm excited to play Batman, and I'm enjoying games like, I mentioned before, the new Elder Scrolls game. That's one of those game series. It's great because, I can play it for long stretches, but then I can step away from it. It's got a lot of detail to it where I get a lot of value out of it. There's hours and hours of, there's like easily 60 hours of gameplay in that game, because I like to explore and do every little nook and cranny of it. But, it's something where when I buy a game like that, I know it will last me a long time. And money-wise, I need my money to go towards my comic books because I'm really digging that. It was funny when he talked about comics that he was enjoying and what he wasn't. As far as not liking Animal Man, maybe. He hasn't read Animal Man yet, but he didn't like Frankenstein. I don't know, if it was me as far as making recommendations for him, if Frankenstein wasn't his cup of tea, I would definitely suggest, a Jonah Hex before I would suggest Animal Man. And I love Animal Man. But, it would be, I think that's more of his cup of tea. Picking up Batgirl is definitely the right choice for him to make, especially considering that he tends to like the superhero titles more. But I would say Jonah Hex, especially for the first arc of Jonah Hex, because there's such a tie into the whole Batman thing with, the history of Gotham becoming a part of what's going on in Jonah Hex. So even if you find that maybe Jonah Hex isn't your cup of tea, that's one that I would recommend for any of our listeners. You're going to want this first few issues of Jonah Hex, you're going to want to give the book a try with this, because I loved that the most recent miniseries from Batman is such a strong part of this whole thing in Jonah Hex. I love that Gotham's history was brought into play here, and that for me really works. I love Jonah Hex outside of that. It doesn't need to be a part of Gotham, but that little added twist, that little dynamic in seeing Jonah try to fit into the world of Gotham as we know it was to me really sweet.
Yeah, man. All we are saying is give Hex a chance.
Wow.
I think John Lennon just rolled over in his grave.
Yeah, he sure did. No, I agree with you, though. It's a cool book. Animal Man I adore. I think it's a great series. I don't know. See, I'm kind of cautious to saying that because I love Frankenstein, but I do think Frankenstein is different. But it is part of that whole, supernatural series. More like... that particular book, Swamp Thing.
Midnight's Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
They all have like a sci-fi fantasy feel to them that, you got to be into that genre. You got to be really into that style. But I tell you, Frank is one that I was actually curious and excited about it because of what happened in Flashpoint, because of what way back in the Seven Soldiers of Victory, and just everything that we've seen from Frank. I'm like, I'm kind of curious, what are they going to do with this? And I've really enjoyed the story, and as it's going on, it's another one of those titles that after 1, 2, 3, as it's growing, as the series is going on, I'm going, man, I'm getting more and more into it.
Animal Man I loved from issue 1. Frankenstein I enjoyed in issue 1. It's gotten better and better with each issue. It's another one of those books that I needed issue 2 and 3 to really start getting me. Issue 2 is one where I really felt with Frankenstein I'm starting to get a hold of that book. I haven't read issue 3 yet, but it's one of those titles where I don't even know if issue 3 is out at this point. I know I've read issue 1 and 2 and I really dug it so far. But it is one of those series that I do think that I'm going to need the third issue and just to kind of get a feel for it as it's going through. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Not every title is going to be that one that's going to make me, especially when it's a character like Frankenstein is not a character that I have a history with. Animal Man I did. You know what, though? Animal Man I didn't either. Other than, the short miniseries we're talking about, there was something about that book right out of the starting gate. I just, home run. It got me right away. But I don't mind like a first arc in a book being something that lets me get to know the title and get to know the characters. I think sometimes a story requires that, and I'm okay with the first arc. Is there ever a book, Jim, that you've read where the first issue has turned you off? And there's not a wrong answer there, but has that happened with you?
I'm trying to think about that. And I don't think there's ever been a one and done where after I read the first issue, I didn't pick up the second one. Close would be the All-Star Batman, but I still picked up the second issue on that one because of the artwork.
Okay. It was, for me, I don't know, I think nowadays I'm so used to the concept of story arcs and knowing that, that a book is going to be contained after a certain number of issues, even though there might be an ongoing storyline being told there, that, whether it's 2 issues or 3 issues or 4 issues or 5 issues, whatever it is for that initial arc, I usually like to give a story the initial arc to get an idea of what the creator's direction is. And then that really lets me know where that title kind of falls in my scheme of things. Is it a top tier title, top 10, top 15, whatever title? One of those ones where I'm like, ugh, this is a title I'd never pass up in a million years. Or is it one of those titles that I need time, with that book to decide. If I had to make cuts in my budget, is it one of those titles that would go? And I do think that nowadays, more so than in the past when I was, a comic fan and my budget was tighter. I do think that's the difference. My budget is really a lot different now than it was when I was younger, where I had to be a little stricter with it. So I tend to be a lot more open-minded to arcs, reading the arc first. So, I don't know. Do you feel that way across all comics that you read, though? Are you that way with Vertigo?
Pretty much now I am. Right now, really, I have a general rule when I pick up a book. I go one story arc before I make any decision, unless it really is one of those books that has me, bam, right from get-go. I'm like, okay, I'm in. I'm all in on this one. And, it's happened on the 52. It's happened with some of the Vertigo. It's happened with non-DC titles that I've done.
I was ballistic with Aquaman. I just think that book right out of that was.
Oh God, yeah, that was right out of the gate.
I didn't need issue 1.
Yeah,
terrific. Well, you know what the thing is, though? I think a lot of that is due to, I had the advantage of the Peter David run, but I know for you were a huge fan of Mira.
Yes, that was, I was the guy who was calling for a Mira title or have Mira in the Justice League, or when everything was done with Blackest Night, hey, if you don't bring back Arthur, let's keep with Mira because she was cool. So I was all in on just that whole style of character, and it's funny. There's a HBO show, or Showtime show called Homeland, and it's about this American Marine who was kidnapped for like 9 years in Iraqi prison, prisoner of war, and he finally gets released. And this guy's coming back to soil, and the CIA doesn't trust him. And all these reporters are around his house and kind of harassing him. And he had an Aquaman moment where this reporter is in his backyard. And he's just asking him questions, and just being that annoying guy, how Aquaman, had that annoying blogger. And, of course, the Marine handled it a little differently than Aquaman. He didn't have the nobility of Arthur. The Marine basically chopped him in the throat and dropped the guy, and with one strike. And I was sitting there watching this going, that's kind of cool. And it just completely flashed back to the Aquaman scene where you see him just, he had the power to basically crush that man without batting an eye. And he didn't because, that's not how you handle it. And I thought it was just a really cool moment.
I'm not just that way with DC's titles, though. Like, if I go to a comic convention, like you mentioned the Mid-Ohio Con, when I was there, I like to walk through Artist Alley. And, if a creative team is there selling their own book, an independent published book, and they have a single issue or a trade paperback available, I will tend to grab the trade paperback first. Because to me, to see if something that they've produced is my cup of tea, I feel I need to read an arc, to read a full story to kind of get an idea, is this something for me? Or, if they have a couple issues available of a book, I'll grab a couple of those issues. One issue alone usually is not enough for me to know. I think it's one of the reasons why, going back to that Green Lantern discussion that we've had, in the past few shows talking about accessibility to I don't think one issue is enough to let people know whether or not that is the right title for them. And that's something I would always encourage anybody who's trying a new book is, there's a lot of questions to be asked. And independent titles are a lot of times where I really don't know the characters. It's, creator owned, they're inventing something new. If I have no background with those characters, I really need a few issues to get a feel for the direction, where they're going, what the creative team does storytelling-wise, what the supporting cast is like. Where's my connection? There's got to be that hook in the first issue that'll make me continue reading the rest of the trade or issue 2 and 3. But if that hook is there, I will stick around for a few issues to see, whether or not that'll fit into my budget. And that actually makes the difference between a stockpile that you and I, will often buy trades. And, I don't buy as many trades as I used to. I used to buy a lot more trade paperbacks, but I'm trying to shrink down my pile of trade paperbacks because, I find that I've been getting so many, and I have this back catalog of things that I'm just like, unless I start being more picky, I'll never get to read all the things that I want to read. But, that was one, like the new Batman hardcover, the one that, the holiday one that just came out, Noel. Did you read that one?
I haven't read it yet, but I have.
Oh, it is terrific. But that's a great example of, I'm starting to get pickier with my back catalog of stuff. I gave myself time to be able to actually read stuff like that. And that is, for anybody that wants to read a great Batman Christmas story that, takes the whole Scrooge thing and does its own little twist in the Batman world and it works. Noel is a terrific story. And you don't have to be a Batman fan or read any Batman title to enjoy Batman Noel. The artwork is incredibly gorgeous. It is amazing how the Bruce Wayne Batman story does fit into the classic Scrooge storyline, and how you'll be surprised to which character is being labeled as Scrooge, and I'll leave it at that. It works really well. It's an interesting dynamic. But, obviously the Joker's in it and other characters that you would expect from the Batman universe, Alfred, and but there's also characters that you'd expect from the classic story with Scrooge. So it works. It actually really works in the whole. It's a great series. The artwork's absolutely terrific. So I can't recommend that hardcover highly enough. And I'll leave it at that because I don't want to ruin anything for you. But I couldn't put that book down once I started reading it. And that's a great example of I'm getting a little pickier with trade paperbacks and hardcovers and things like that as they come out. I want to make sure that I actually read these things because I want to enjoy them. So I like that kind of stuff, and that's terrific.
Holy caffeine!
Want to remind everyone that our show voicemail line is 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. That's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. That is available in our show notes and on our website and our About Us section. Every week you can find that. And we love having you a part of the show. So if you haven't had a chance to call in before, please do. We love it. So thank you very much. Over at dcbservice.com, want to shout out once again both Dead Man trade paperbacks. Volume 1 is $19.99 regularly, 40% off, only $11.99. Volume 2, $14.99 regularly, 40% off, only $8.99 from dcbservice.com. Remember, they're a DC Comics digital partner. 5% towards your DCB service order from ordering from them, and it's a great way to support our show sponsor as well. Over at InStockTrades.com, they're offering that amazing deal of 40% off DC trade paperbacks and hardcovers and 50% off all DC archives. Plus, they're off to 80% off on clearance titles. So that's InStockTrades.com, another one of our show sponsors. I want to thank both DCB Service and InStockTrades.com, both of those sites, for supporting our show. We'll be back on Sunday night with another couple New 52 reviews, and we're also going to finish up the rest of our voicemail catch-up. So this will be a great chance for us to get kind of caught up on everything, and I want to thank everyone for their patience, and hope you enjoyed this show.
Bye!
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Are closing in, be they Thanengard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see.